Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Little, Mayor for the District of North Vancouver, and the pleasure falls to me to welcome you all here to our public hearing. I have a script to go through as this is a quasi-judicial setting, and so if you'll bear with me for a few minutes, we'll go through this, and then we're going to have the staff do their proposal, then the applicant, and then we'll move over to public input at that time. This public hearing is being convened, I should say the address is 2050 to 2070 Marine Drive and an unaddressed lot zoning bylaw amendments. This public hearing is being convened pursuant to Section 464 of the Local Government Act and is being held in a hybrid meeting format, meaning there is a combination of in-person and electronic participation by some or all members of council, staff, and the public. The chair has established the following rules for this hearing. 1, we will go through the established speakers list. At the end of the speakers list, the chair may call for any other speakers not on the speakers list. You will have 5 minutes to address council for a first time. Begin your remarks to council by stating your name. After everyone who wishes to speak has spoken once, speakers will then be allowed one additional 5-minute opportunity. Any additional presentations will only be allowed at the discretion of the chair. Please do not repeat information from your previous presentations and ensure your comments remain focused on the bylaw under consideration this evening. If you've provided a written submission, there's no need to read it as it will have been seen by the council. You may summarize or briefly reiterate the highlights of your submission, but ensure your comments pertain to the bylaw under consideration at this hearing. All members of the audience are asked to be respectful of one another as diverse opinions are expressed. Council wishes to hear everyone's views in an open and impartial forum. Some important notes about public hearings. The council is here to listen to the public, not to debate the merits of the bylaw. Council may ask clarifying questions. The clerk has a binder containing documents and submissions related to the bylaws which council has received and which you are welcome to review. This is available online at dnv.org/agenda. Everyone at the hearing will be provided an opportunity to speak. If necessary, we will continue the hearing on a second night. At the conclusion of the public input, council may request further information from staff which may or may not require an extension of the hearing. Or council may close the hearing, after which council should not receive further new information from the public. Finally, please note that this hearing is being held via Zoom and recorded in accordance with the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Mr. Clerk, the introduction of the bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. This public hearing is being held for consideration of District of North Vancouver Rezoning Bylaw 8573. And the purpose of Bylaw 8573 is to amend the district zoning bylaw. So I'll just bring this up. To amend the district zoning bylaw, or to rezone the subject sites, I should say, from Marine Drive Commercial Zone C9 and Tourist Commercial Zone C4 to Comprehensive Development Zone 142 and Neighborhood Park. The Comprehensive Development Zone 142 addresses permitted and accessory uses and zoning provisions such as density, setbacks, building heights, building and site coverage, landscaping and stormwater management, and parking and loading requirements. Your Worship, that is Bylaw 8573. There is a staff presentation from Mr. Zhang.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Just to note that 6 members of our council are present, either in person or virtually. Councillor Bond has expressed regrets and cannot participate tonight. However, he cannot vote at second and third reading until he has reviewed the material from the public hearing. And that's the burden on him to prepare for second and third reading at that time. Now I'm going to go over to Kevin Zhang for the staff presentation. Welcome, Mr. Zhang.
Thank you, Worship. Can everyone see my presentation?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, and members of the public. My name is Kevin Zhang, Development Planner with the District. The public hearing tonight is for Rezoning Bylaw 8573, which rezones the sites from Commercial Zones C6 and C9 to Comprehensive Development Zone 142 and Neighborhood Park Zone to accommodate the development on the screen. My presentation tonight will provide a brief overview of the application, of the rezoning application located at 2050 to 2070 Marine Drive. IBI Group, the applicant, has applied on behalf of Marvel Development Lionsgate Village Limited, the owner of the properties, for a redevelopment outlined in yellow on the screen, which includes 4 key components. The first is a 27-story building, and then a 4-story building along Marine Drive, a 9-story building along Curling Road, and just hidden in this view, a neighborhood park that's on the north side of the development. We'll get a better view from another angle later on in the presentation. Implementation of the project requires Council's consideration of a rezoning bylaw and 4 housing agreement bylaws. For context, the site is located in the southwest corner of the district, adjacent to our boundary with West Vancouver. It's also located within one of the district's 4 key town and village centers, the Lionsgate Marine Drive Village Center. It's at the western gateway of the district, and it is on the Marine Drive frequent transit corridor. Zooming in a little closer, we can see that the site consists of 4 properties, bound by Marine Drive to the south and Curling Road to the north. Currently located on the site are Travelodge Hotel, Foad Feridian, and Denny's restaurants. After first reading of the zoning bylaw, staff became aware of an increase to the temporary accommodations of homeless individuals on this property. We understand that BC Housing has recently secured approximately 60 units in the existing Travelodge for temporary accommodation until November 2023, with a possible extension to 2025. The applicant for tonight's rezoning has indicated to staff that should the rezoning proceed, the development would not necessitate the end to this temporary arrangement until after November 2023, or approximately 1.5 to 2 years in the future. Whether or not this rezoning is approved, we understand that this arrangement is temporary. I want to add a couple of points for context relating to long-term needs of homeless individuals in the district. First, Council has passed a motion in a public meeting directing staff to work with partners such as BC Housing to explore permanent supportive housing solutions in the district. This direction resulted in successful partnerships with Rain City and BC Housing for the development of a 5-story, 60-unit permanent supportive housing project on West 16th and Lloyd Avenue. The design and eventual construction of this facility is ongoing. And secondly, with Council's direction, staff continue to explore other permanent supportive housing solutions and will be returning to Council with more information in the near future. Surrounding developments include the newly developed townhomes in the Lionsgate Barofa area, the Larco development with our new community center, Celtic's development at the former Grouse Inn, an existing office building, Marine Drive and Squamish Nation lands to the south, and the Sentinel development in West Vancouver, along with Klahani Park. Now lastly, some quick stats on the properties. The site is approximately 2.6 acres in size, designated commercial residential mixed-use level 2 in the OCP, and zoned a combination of commercial zones C4 and C9. The site is located within development permit areas for form and character, energy and water conservation, and greenhouse gas emissions reduction. And a detailed review of development permit issues and applicable guidelines will be required should the proposal proceed. As background, Council has seen this project on 3 previous occasions. The first was at an early input opportunity in 2020, where Council reviewed the proposal and made some key comments on affordability, built form, traffic impacts, and the demands on local infrastructure. Staff worked with the applicant to address Council's comments in the following year, and in 2021, the applicant came back to Council with a revised proposal. This revised proposal included increased non-market rental units, increased market rental units, reduced strata units, added rent-to-own, locals first, and lock-off units, increased the number of accessible units, added a cafe, reduced the height of the tallest building from 29 to 27 stories, increased dedications for local infrastructure, and brought the non-market rental building up to passive house standards. At the conclusion of this meeting, Council instructed staff to proceed with preparing bylaws for introduction. And on May 9th, 2022, Council gave these bylaws first reading and referred the zoning bylaw to public hearing tonight. Public hearing notifications have been placed on the site, advertised in the North Shore News, and mailed to neighbors within a 400-meter radius. The notifications have also been mailed to adjacent community associations, West Vancouver, and Squamish Nation. Turning to the site layout, the proposal includes two phases: a south phase in the first phase, and then the north half, which is the second phase. On the south parcel, Building A is a 27-story commercial and residential mixed-use building with 158 strata units and 77 market rental units and a cafe. Building B, a 4-story residential building with 41 non-market rental units. Over in the north parcel, Building C, a 9-story residential building with 54 strata units. And lastly, a neighborhood park on an independent parcel of land that is to be transferred to the municipality. The densities and land uses seen here is consistent with the OCP goals of focusing growth in key growth centers. The built form is generally aligned with the land use plan in the Lower Capilano Lionsgate implementation plan. The offsite improvements and neighborhood park reflect the Lionsgate public realm strategy, and the mix of housing tenure, especially non-market rental housing, is well matched with the priorities and targets set by the OCP action plan, Council's directions, and the district's rental and affordable housing strategy. Lastly, I want to point out that the new public road is proposed to connect Curling Road with the new road over by the Grouse Inn site. On this slide, I'll provide an overview of the vehicle and bicycle parking provided in the proposal. The zoning bylaw applied to the proposal directly would require a total of 610 parking stalls, which is noted on the left side of this table. In 2020, in order to promote the use of alternative modes of transportation and achieving Council's climate initiatives, the district's alternative vehicle parking rates policy was approved. And by tailoring the proposal to match this policy, the required parking is reduced to 373, seen on the right side of this table. This reduction is supported by the policy through transportation demand management strategies, such as the proximity to frequent transit stop improvements along Marine Drive, a shared bicycle fleet, and unbundling parking. The proposal also includes 634 total bike parking stalls, which is in compliance with the district's bicycle parking and end-of-trip facilities policy. In addition, the bicycle repair rooms are proposed in both the north parcel and south parcel underground parking garages. Moving from on-site to off-site, this application includes typical street frontage improvements such as street trees, pedestrian infrastructure, and engineering upgrades. In addition, the proposal includes significant dedications and easements for public infrastructure and amenities, which total approximately 44% of the site. These dedications include a 4.1 meter dedication along Marine Drive, which will accommodate improved transit and pedestrian infrastructure, a 16 meter dedication through the site for the construction of a new public road and plaza, a 3.5 to 5 meter dedication along Curling Road for improved sidewalks and neighborhood park, and a 7.5 meter wide highway dedication along a portion, sorry, this one here, of a portion of the eastern property line, which will provide improved road access for the easterly neighbor. The underground parking access for both phases is proposed to be from the new public road that bisects the site. This will eliminate the existing vehicle accesses that front onto Curling Road and Marine Drive. At first reading, a specific question was raised by council inquiring about the feasibility of a third level of underground parking at this location. Staff have been provided with confirmation from an updated geotechnical memo that based on additional investigation of up to 18.3 meters below grade, looking at both subsurface soil and underground conditions, the construction of a third level of underground parking is feasible. And here we have a rendering of the neighborhood park from the new public road as seen on the previous slide. Moving on to housing, this table shows a summary of the tenure type. Oops, here it is. This table shows a summary of the tenure type and bedroom compositions within this development. As highlighted in the blue box, 77 market rental and 41 non-market rental, totaling 118 units, or 36% of the units in this property are market and non-market. 2 and 3 bedroom units, highlighted in the orange square, account for approximately 62% of the project. And on my last slide, I want to provide a little bit more detail on the breakdown of the housing proposal. So of the 330 total units, just over a third are typical strata units. The rest are all housing options that aim to tackle affordability in a variety of forms. These include 77 market rental units, 16 rent-to-own strata units, similar to Seymour Estates, 48 locals first strata units with a 5% discount. And locals here is defined as residents of the City North Van and District of North Van. 21 strata units with lock-off suites, which can be rented out as a mortgage helper. And lastly, 41 non-market rental units. So I've highlighted the 41 non-market rental units because I wanted to delve into the rents a little bit. These units, as seen on the table here, are targeted towards low to moderate income households. And as seen in the central column here, the proposed rents are between $1,100 and $1,700 a month. This translates to an annual household income of between $44,000 annual or $69,000 annual household income for the 3 bedrooms. And finally, I will highlight the comparison with both Metro Vancouver median and District median. So as highlighted in orange here, the proposed rent of $1,100 to $1,700 is roughly 11 to 15% below Metro median rents. And of course, even lower compared to DNV median. So these rents are between 18 and 30% below DNV median rents. To conclude, the public hearing tonight is for a mixed-use development located at a key location within our Lionsgate Village Center along the Marine Drive frequent transit corridor. It includes a variety of housing options ranging from non-market rental to market rental to strata. It also includes improvements to Marine Drive transit infrastructure, overall pedestrian and cycling infrastructure within the Lionsgate Village Center, and also the construction of a new public road and a neighborhood park. We look forward to hearing from the public tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhang. Next speaker I have is the applicant. I believe is represented by Mr. Geller. So welcome here in person.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, members of the public. My name is Michael Geller. I'm a planning and development consultant working with the owner of this property. And I'm also here with Martin Bruckner, senior architect with IBI Architects, with whom I've worked for over 30 years. And he puts up with me. What I would like to do is, I've been waiting many years for this opportunity, but I promise to be as quick as I can. And but I'd like to quickly go through some additional information from our perspective. But I first of all want to thank the staff both for working with us so diligently and for what I thought was an extremely comprehensive presentation. They only missed one thing that I'll mention at the very end. So, as you, I think, clearly understand now that there are 3 basic buildings plus a park within this development. But I'd like to start off with a comment made at one of those meetings by Councillor Lisa Murray, who was pointing out how when council talks to developers and sticks to principles, you can get things that the developer may not initially offer. And that's exactly what has happened here. I think it is clear we're all interested in affordable housing. We're concerned about climate change. And in that regard, it was clear to us that if we wanted to get approval, we had to address climate change and we had to address traffic and parking. And so now the application does indeed include affordable housing, which was not here, certainly not here 8 years ago when I was before Mayor Little and others on behalf of the Grouse Inn site next door. We have now introduced the below market housing, and we have, as I think you'll hear, gone quite a long way in terms of creating a more sustainable community that will contribute towards a reduction. So the key changes that have occurred over the last 2 years are reducing the parking for the residents, but not the visitors. And I want to stress, we have not reduced in any way the visitor parking. We have, though, created a lot more housing choices in terms of the rental housing, rent to own, which is a way of helping people who may not have a large down payment to get in, and a Locals First program, because we think this is a perfect location for people who live on the North Shore, especially Northern City and District. We've introduced a concept called Lock-Off Suites, which we'll show you, which helps create another rental unit. As you've heard, we've reduced the height. One thing I want to stress is that these will be fossil fuel-free homes, both heating, domestic hot water, and we've recently agreed to also for cooking, so there will not be gas stoves, but induction electric. Maybe I can quickly show you a few features here. The idea of a lock-up suite, which becomes a very flexible form of housing. As we noted, a considerable amount of attention has been given to reducing the parking. Councillor Hanson at one point thought there would be 610 parking spaces, and there aren't, because I think we're all concerned about that would have been a massive number. We've looked at a number of other measures, though, to justify the reduced parking, as you heard, and that includes things like unbundled parking. What that means is in many condos, you buy an apartment, you immediately get 1 or 2 spaces. We're going to separate the parking. So if someone does not want to pay for a parking space, they don't have to. And that's one of the ways we can reduce the amount of parking. We're also looking at a number of other initiatives, including everything right down to storage facilities for cargo bikes, which I was reminded are becoming increasingly popular, and the architect has been making sure we have space for that. So maybe now I'll call upon Martin Bruckner just to tell you some of the other features of the development.
Thank you. Thank you. Got the speaker here. So we're mindful about accessibility in our projects, and the district does have requirements for that, but I just wanted to make you aware that, in fact, all the common areas, especially exterior as well as the interior, amenity areas are going to be accessible, especially for people in wheelchairs. So that would extend to the open spaces that the residents on site will be having access to on both north and south sides. And also within the building themselves, the interior amenity spaces, which in most cases are adjacent to the outdoor space, will also be accessible. All of the units will meet the basic accessibility requirements in the layout of the suites, the entryways into the suites and throughout the building. And then our intention is to exceed the minimum enhanced accessibility for the units beyond the 5%. And as we get further into the project, we'll be detailing those layouts to provide that. Thank you. Yes, and then the next slide. I just wanted to make you aware that our firm has recently finished its first local passive house building, the image on the left. It is a 7-story office building and it provides workspace for artists in the city of Vancouver. It was a CAC, or an amenity that the developer provided to the city. It was opened earlier this year. A very nice building, a very beautiful building. We're also currently working on the middle image tower on Nelson Street, also in Vancouver. It will be the highest passive house building in the world. I'm almost embarrassed to say, but it's condo as well as social housing, and it will be a real milestone building for Vancouver and for the Lower Mainland. So we are well versed in how these buildings get designed and built, and it will inform the whole project.
Somebody said to me, this is all concrete. I mean, surely concrete is not a very sustainable material, but in fact, we are committed to using more sustainable concrete. There are products available now using fly ash, and your firm has done a lot of that as well.
Yes. And then we had meetings with neighborhood groups, like public information meetings about this project a while ago. And one of the concerns raised, in particular by residents at Woodcroft, was their impact on their views. So we created the view analysis from Woodcroft. We were able to gain access to some of the suites, take a photograph and create this view analysis. And we submit that, in fact, the views are not adversely affected, we don't think, by this project, or by the buildings that have already been built here. And I think the height profile of the building fits what's being built there already, and so suggest view analysis that the views aren't that badly affected. Thank you. I'll carry on here. The more close-up views is the mid-rise building on the north side with townhouses facing north, as well as the new park, so that we just make a conscious effort to design buildings that at grade, the uses reinforce the public realm, which would be the sidewalk, the semi-private open space that are the patios for the townhouses, that you have eyes on the street, and to enhance the public realm and provide a good neighborhood feel.
I just wanted to highlight this quote from Frank Ducote. Frank Ducote was the senior urban designer for the district, with whom I worked on both the Grouse Inn and early stages of this project. And I told him I was coming to this public meeting, and I sent him the package, and I think he made a good point when he says, this helps to reinforce the look of a new town center. And that's what this is, a village center, a town center, supported by the rapid bus that is right outside the door, and one day improve transit throughout the district.
So next image, yes. So then the first and second floor of the buildings are townhouses, which have their own access from the street, which again reinforces the character of the street, provides a good neighborhood feel. And we also like to illustrate how the architectural quality of this project will be of a high standard, and will be, I think, helpful to make for a really, really well-planned and well-designed community. So the next images illustrate that. This is the entrance to the tower. On the left-hand side, there will be this public open way down to Marine Drive, with the water feature in the foreground as you enter the building.
One of the things we often heard about was the importance of addressing isolation. And in a development like this, there's a need for more integration, for people to meet each other. And one of the concerns that was expressed was, we don't want all the people living in the condos just to be with the condos and so forth. And when the mayor expressed concern that the cafe that I was certain was going into the development next door was not happening, we changed our plans to create a little cafe in a wonderful location here, which I think will be a part of the little community focus of this development. So just to wrap this up, what this development will do, if you approve it, is complete the road system in Lionsgate Village, and it will complete a park, most of which is on our property, a portion is on the Grouse End. It will also, I think, address a concern you had earlier, which was the pace of development. The fact is now most of the other significant projects are not only approved, they're almost complete. And as a colleague said to me, this site is in a way a final piece in the jigsaw puzzle. I think because of the amenities nearby and the excellent public transit, as planners, this is really considered a very suitable location for what I'm calling higher density development, although I've been arguing with my colleagues in Vancouver because I think their density is too high. This is a quarter of the density being proposed, but it's appropriate because that was what the official community plan said. The other thing that I think is important is when this is completed, it creates a new gateway into the district. Along Marine Drive, you begin to have a greenway. All the driveways along Marine Drive will be eliminated, which will improve significantly the rapid bus service. So to conclude, we like to think that this development checks many of the boxes. And I mentioned at the beginning that the planner only omitted one small detail. And I know it's crass to talk about money, but I know my client would be very upset if I didn't mention that on top of everything else that we're providing, there's also a community amenity contribution of $3.4 million, which goes to the district for you to use as you see fit. But it's above and beyond everything else that's being offered. So we hope that this has addressed many of the concerns and comments that we've heard from you, as well as many of the comments from the community. And I'm pleased to end 3 minutes and 46 seconds early.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, next we move on to members from the public. The first speaker from the member of the public is Tina Ebrahimi, followed by Judith Brook. Ms. Ebrahimi is joining us here in person. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. And sorry, Cheryl, how do I pull up that drawing?
Is it on the desktop there?
There we go. Escape. Alrighty. I'll leave that up for a minute.
Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Good evening. My name is Tina Ebrahimi. I'm the president of the Strata Council at 2030 Marine Drive, a commercial building located right smack in the middle between Celtic and Marvel Group. With every privilege comes an obligation, and I've had the privilege to be born and raised in North Vancouver, British Columbia, and today I have an obligation as well. Today I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. I speak on behalf of every single person within the District of North Vancouver that's scared to voice their rights, that has a language barrier, that's been shunned away from presenting their rights, and on behalf of my family business, which is behind the Strata building. In addition to that, the hundreds of family businesses within our commercial building and all the neighboring associations that have not been informed of this proposal. Actually, it's with strong consideration that I now understand why in 1948, Article 17, UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, read that human rights are also property rights. In addition to that, we currently have access to our property through 2 easements, 2 of which should be highly important to the proposal that's been discussed tonight. The district has proposed a new entrance to the north of our property, which is also on a private property, so we're not clear whether or not our access will even be maintained. If you refer to the drawing on the screen here, you'll already see the highlighted in yellow is 2 walls that have been built illegally on our property without permits, without permission, and the district's known about it for more than half a year. We're still waiting on wondering why they're not putting a stop work order on it. In fact, the reason I bring it up is because how can we possibly feel safe when we've even made attempts to contact the District of North Vancouver about demolition permits to take down the wall, and yet multiple emails have remained unanswered. In addition to that, as they say, history may repeat itself, so we're trying to stop it in its tracks. You see, the problem with the proposal for tonight's discussion is that it would be creating a land block for our building. In fact, this does not come from an opinion standpoint. We have consulted multiple engineers, traffic engineers with 30+ years experience, one of which led a conference of traffic engineers for 500 people in the past week. In addition to that, multiple development lawyers in addition. Also, it seems that Marvel Group, or Lionsgate, as I heard it before, it seems that it keeps changing names. They have a suggestion for our front entrance, and they're making decisions for our property without our knowledge. So that's kind of interesting. And up until now, no one has demonstrated a genuine effort to come forth and have a conversation with us, not even discuss why there's a park that's affecting our easements. Nobody has come forth. In fact, the thing is, we are open once there's a discussion that it's genuine, ethical, decent, that comes to us and addresses our concerns. However, as it stands, not only is there detrimental effects that are financial for our business, for the businesses within the building, but also, I'm just wondering, how is it that the DNV is still entertaining this after this much discussion? I mean, is this a public hearing? Can you hear me? Or am I being heard? Or are you listening? Those are 3 different things. Marvel has taken the non-collaborative approach. Actually, up until thus far, it's been with great hesitation that they met with me. I'm glad to know that Mr. Martin Bruckner actually—
You could please address the chair, that would be appreciated.
Oh, of course, my apologies, Your Worship. I'm glad to see that Mr. Martin Bruckner actually physically exists, because we've been trying to get a hold of him for about a year with no luck. Having said that, not only has it been a non-collaborative approach, but Mr. Geller, who represents this project, has left me with his last words of wisdom in the last meeting I had with him. Pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. So you tell me, how is it that we would feel safe? How is it that we would feel safe with the walls that you see on the screen, with the statements that I've heard, with this proposal blocking us? And furthermore, I want you to know that everything I say today, I have evidence for. In addition to that, Mayor and Council, if you say yes to this project today, you are saying no to our property rights and you're saying no to our human rights. And I ask you this, Mr. Zhang as well, because I know you're the planner for this project. Mayor, Council, how can you sleep at night knowing that you can potentially contribute to violating somebody else's rights? Thank you.
Very much. Next speaker I have on the list, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be no shows of applause or support. This is a bullying-free environment, and people are welcome to present varying views without interruption. The next speaker that we have is Judith Brook, followed by Bill Dick. I believe Judith Brook is joining us virtually today.
That's correct. Can you? Yes, can you hear me, Mayor Little?
Yes, I can. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Great, thank you. My name is Judith Brook. I live in the 2000 block of Laura Lynn in the district North Vancouver. As we've heard, this project has 330 residential units with 212 market strata, 8 rent to own, 77 market rental, and 41 non-market rental, with buildings A and B in the south side and building C in the northern site. We heard about the earlier proposal back in November 2020 and the what I call definitely improvements in the proposed project since that time. But one of the points I wanted to make is that, of course, I was hoping for an even larger percentage of rental units in the overall project, because there are just so many folks who will have no chance ever to purchase a unit, and they want to live on the North Shore as well. So I am grateful on behalf of Climate Health. The 4-story non-market rental building is proposed to achieve passive house certification. And as we know, passive design requires very little heat. So we heard tonight from the applicant in the presentation there, I believe I heard there will be no gas stove. So I'm hoping we can confirm tonight there will be no gas connection to the building. If someone later could perhaps comment on that. Page 30 of staff report states residential units are proposed to be serviced with fossil fuel free mechanical systems. So as we heard, no gas stoves. So I'm asking, does this mean no gas fireplaces, no gas connection? I read the remaining residential component of the development will be built to step 3 of the step code with the LCES system. Again, I appreciate this on behalf of Climate Health. The staff report states the commercial component will be built to step 1. And I'm wondering if we can bump up aspirations for this portion of the project with an LCES approach to be implemented in the commercial component as well. The pedestrian and cycling connections in all directions, as described, will be very much appreciated and well used, I'm sure. Years ago, I used a path in this very neighborhood to access the West Van seawall for jogging, and increasing safe pedestrian and rolling options helps keep us all healthy. The concept of locals first makes sense with our large commuting workforce. Thanks to the applicant for planning what's described as a minimum of 48 strata units, 21 bedroom, 22 bedroom, and 8 3-bedroom to be marketed to locals first at a 5% discount below the standard list prices. So that's appreciated because we all know what our bridges look like with folks coming here to work and then leaving at the end of the day. And the end of the day today, it literally started at 2:30. The cafe will be a great meeting spot for residents, and that's terrific. I think that's great to encourage people to mingle. We heard the applicants state they will use low carbon cement, example fly ash. So that's great because I was about to ask for that. But I would like this concept to be extended for low carbon consideration throughout the project. For example, insulation and blowing agents. Wondered if a mass timber build was being considered. I heard the applicants say something about why is this all concrete, but I didn't quite grasp what he was talking about there. But my point is, as we know, mass timber is better for the environment. Mass timber can match or exceed the strength of concrete and steel while reducing carbon emissions by up to 45%. And this is already happening. So the world's tallest mass timber building is in Norway. It's 85 meters high. In Vancouver, we have the honor of the second tallest mass timber building at UBC. It's Brock Commons Tallwood Residence. And to quote Tim Buller of Canadian Wood Council, this building is 53 meters or 18 stories. It's a student residence, opened July 2017, and installed with a crew of 9 people over 9 weeks, including the crane operator. So it's all very doable and very good for the environment. Thanks for the staff presentation. I see the new road access whereby residents of 2 southern buildings must cross this road to reach the park. So I just want to ensure, obviously, that there will be traffic lights and slow speeds to ensure safe crossing. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Judith Brook. Next speaker is Bill Dick, followed by Peter Teevan. I believe Bill is joining us virtually today. You are still marked as muted.
I'm unmuting, but I don't seem to have a video feed.
Yes, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mayor Little.
Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Hey, thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, Mayor Little and council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. In the interest of transparency, I want to point out that I'm not an employee of, a consultant to, or an advisor to, or an agent for the developer. I have no personal interest in this rezoning application and would not benefit in any way from it. Anyways, like Ms. Brooks, I'd like to point out lots of positive features about the project. The land contribution that the developer is going to give for the continuation or the finalization of the road network and the park, and in combination with the property next door, there'll be a half-acre approximately park here, which is, I think, a real benefit to the local community. What the developer's offering to do in terms of the lock-off suites, the workforce housing, the rent-to-own, and the locals first, I think is incredible. I don't believe, and I'm not sure if Mr. Geller can confirm this, I don't think there's any other development in the district, let alone hardly anywhere else in Metro Vancouver, that offers all those benefits to potential owners in the project. And like Ms. Brook, my real concern is about the environmental aspects. We heard this evening that gas stoves won't be permitted, and also there will be no use of fossil fuels in heating and cooling systems. So I think this project is a real benefit to the district, and I would urge Your Worship, Mayor Little, and other council members to approve the rezoning application. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening, and I wish you the remainder of your evening to be very pleasant.
Thank you for your comments, Bill Dick. The next speaker I have is Peter Teevan, followed by Syed Sabeti. Mr. Teevan is joining us here in person today.
Thank you. I've just got to clear the screen if you give me a second.
Welcome, and you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Can I just start with a question? Councillor Bond is not in attendance.
That's correct.
Should we take that as any indication that he intends to recuse himself for the balance of this?
No. The obligation, as I said at the beginning, is on him to avail himself of the recording and minutes produced by the meeting before he's eligible to vote.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
And I also want to point out that as a speaker here in the public, we don't get to see the rest of council. It's a little disconcerting. We're used to, in live public hearings, seeing whether council is listening, and that's not possible in this.
While we're having presentations on slideshow there, we can't spotlight them.
Yeah,
so as soon as we're done with presentations, we'll spotlight them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. The first thing I'd like to talk about, and just for the record, public record, my name is Peter Teevan. I live in the 1900 block Indian River Crescent. I also have no interest in this development of any kind. The first thing I want to talk about is that as a member of the public, I'm very much confused as to who are the owners. There's 4 lots here that are detailed, 2050, 2060, 2070, and the unaddressed lot. And tonight I've just learned who IBI Group is. Until now, I didn't know who that was. The district website lists IBI Group as the applicant, then it gives a contact at Marvell Group. The staff report says that Marvell Developments, at one point, the schedule to the bylaw says that they are the owner in fee simple. And on another part of the staff report, it says that Marvell is applying on behalf of the owners, which to me implies that there's multiple owners of these 4 lots. And I think, I entitled this presentation Follow the Money because we're very keen interest in understanding who the players are here and who stands to benefit. And so my first question that I hope that council takes up and asks of staff is, could we please have disclosed who the owners and principals of the corporations that own each of the 4 lots that are included? I want to start out by showing this screen, which is the welcome screen to the Conflict of Interest Commissioner of British Columbia. And the mandate of this office is to promote public confidence in elected public officials as they conduct public business. We have a history in this province where in 2017, we changed the local campaign finance laws to eliminate corporate interests from donating to local campaign elections. And the quote from the minister at the time was that it's been the Wild West in political fundraising. People want change, and deep pockets shouldn't decide elections. People should. And then the president of the UBCM said that they felt that these changes would level the playing field for candidates. What we saw from 2014 with this legislative change was not only did we get more donors that we can provide some evidence are tied to the development business, but also the amount of donations to local campaigns over doubled. And so herein, because I don't know the owners of these 4 lots, I can't figure out whether there's other conflicts of interest that we don't know about. So here they all are for the public record, and I will be supplying this slide for scanning to the tray for entry into the log, if you please. But these are from the public record from BC Elections local campaign reporting system. So here are all of our elected officials. We have Councillor Back, Councillor Curran, Councillor Forbes, in the center, Councillor Hanson. On the right, yourself, your worship, and Councillor Murray. And these are the campaign donations for building bridges, which are represented by Councillor Bond. We know from this list that the 2 principals of Marble donated to building bridges. And just backing up for a second, I'm reminded of that, the quote, "We don't want deep pockets to decide elections, we want people to." It's hard for me to fathom that when I look at this. I want to remind council that conflict of interest is not about your state of mind. It's not about whether you feel conflicted. It is about we, the public, and our confidence that you are taking steps to make sure you're not in conflict. I'm really incredulous when I see a member of council declare a conflict of interest, saying that they've received a campaign donation, and then fail to recuse themselves. Because in my mind, what that tells us is they have no concept of what conflict of interest is all about. It is about public confidence. And so how can we trust in this case? Because we don't even know who the owners are, so we cannot follow the money. What we did see is donations to building bridges from 2 principals of Marble in 2018, which Councillor Bond did declare, but then proceeded to debate, engage, and cast the deciding vote to put this through first reading. I think that I can speak for a number of well-experienced citizens to say that we are highly uncomfortable with that. And that will finish my first submission.
Thank you, Mr. Teevan. I think that it would probably, I try to interfere in the public hearing the least amount I possibly can, but I did just want to add clarity around one piece. The member of council you're referring to did proactively disclose that they had received a donation, but as you well know, you and I have talked about it before, the courts have ruled consistently that a donation does not in and of itself create a state of conflict of interest. So you saying that it does actually disagrees with the courts, and it does not in and of itself constitute a conflict of interest. And so I just wanted to be fair. It was disclosed correctly on the financial documentation. It, as an additional measure, which is not actually required by the law, that councillor did proactively disclose that they had received a donation from that. And so they have followed the procedure so far, and the procedure does not suggest that they should be automatically recused on the matter. So just to be fair, I know you're dissatisfied with that, but...
Well, actually, I want to acknowledge that that is the legal distinction, Your Worship. What I'm talking about is public opinion and moral point of view.
And you can make that case. But thank you very much for your presentation. I think I heard you say at the end there that you would like to, please, folks, no, you can't do that. Not in a hearing. Thank you very much. And I think I heard from you that you intend to speak a second time, so I'm going to add you to the list after we've gone through first-time speakers. Thank you, Mr. Teevan. The next speaker I have, I believe, is Syed Sabeti, followed by Don Peters. Hope I've said that correctly.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to, you have 5 minutes to speak to the hearing.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council and public. At first, I am thankful for the opportunity that is given to speak on this particular application. I've been a resident of North Shore for the past 20 years, and I would like to express appreciation for thoughtfulness of the development proposal of 2050 to 2070 Marine Drive in North Vancouver. I strongly support the application as I believe North Vancouver will benefit from a development with following features. Of course, I don't want to elaborate too much on those features because it was very professionally and thoroughly presented by Mr. Zane and elaborated by IBI representatives. But the features that I have seen in this particular project, which I'm basically concentrating on the project itself, rather than issues surrounding the project, I see that the project offers or increases housing diversity to support a range of all incomes, household types through a broad mix of housing, including condominiums as well as market and non-market rentals. This project addresses the affordability and housing shortage with unique features that is tailored to the needs of North Shore residents. The programs that were discussed, like Local First, Rent to Own, Block of Suites, Public Park, and network of roads, pedestrian and bike pathways, are positive contributions to North Vancouver District. Furthermore, I see innovative features of this development that creates a beautiful gateway to North Vancouver, and unique development design encourages off-site improvements, improves pedestrian-friendly features, and accessibility for people of all abilities. And finally, this development has considered traffic congestions by limiting parking stalls, energy water conservations, and greenhouse gas emission reductions. In conclusion, I strongly support this project and encourage your favorable considerations. And as mentioned earlier, my presentation is mainly focused on the project, the features of the project, and I'm confident that the surrounding issues would be dealt with, and all the issues will be ironed out in a mutual acceptable way. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Next speaker I have is Don Peters, followed by Nadjev Ponoma. And I believe Don Peters is joining us by telephone. Do we have Mr. Peters connected to the meeting?
Are you able to hear me, Your Worship?
Yes, I am. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Don Peters. I chair the 26-member North Shore Community Housing Action Committee. And for those not familiar with our work, we have been actively advocating for adequate, accessible, and affordable rental housing on the North Shore for some 16 years. And Mr. Zhang, I'd like to thank you for a very clear staff report tonight. The IBI group is here tonight with this application to redevelop the Travelodge site, as it's known, at the western edge of the district on Marine Drive, just west of Capilano Road. This project has been in the pipeline, we understand, for a number of years and was once a strictly market strata project, but it is considerably different tonight. It has all the makings of a neighborhood. The developer approached us late last year for review and comment on this considerably altered and considerably improved project, which now features 118 some rental units in total, of which 41 are below market. That's about 35%, which is pretty significant, and in fact, one of the most significant we've seen in a similar rental mix ever. Features also are 330 new residential homes in total, including 212 market strata, of which 8 are rent-to-own, and there is some commercial space as well. Now, we recognize that in 2020 there were some concerns about affordability, climate impact, and traffic regarding this proposal here tonight, but we hear tonight that these have been addressed. As well, we note reduced tower height and an increase in both market and non-market and mortgage helper lock-off suites. We find that quite impressive, actually. And speaking of affordability, we see the staff report notes that compared with both metro and district median rents, the rental rates in this, in this project are significantly lower for ground-oriented apartments. We see these features as very important. We like the clear potential for getting people out of cars on their way to Vancouver, the Lonsdale Quay, and to Horseshoe Bay, which both as a municipality and a region we desperately need. We add in a Locals First program, which is really interesting, with special treatment for district and city of North Vancouver residents, a coffee shop and meeting space, and an on-site park, neighborhood park area, and a nearby rec center facility as well. This seems to us, Your Worship and Council, to be a quality neighborhood building project. And while not perfect, of course, it has much to commend it. And CHAC is strongly is very pleased that temporary housing has been arranged for the homeless people with the assistance of BC Housing. So in conclusion, Your Worship and Council, CHAC strongly supports this project going ahead. We thank you very much and good night.
Thank you very much, Don Peters. The next speaker I have is Nadjev Ponoma, followed by Mary Hosseini. Nadjev Ponoma, can you hear me? I see you're joining us virtually, and I see it is unmuted, but I haven't been able to hear you yet. Nadjev Ponoma, can you hear me? I don't know what to say. It says that here that you are unmuted. Can you hear me? Oh, there we go.
Yes,
welcome.
hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Perfect. Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the issues with my headset. Hopefully I will be able to speak. Otherwise, I will submit it in writing.
We can hear you clearly.
Sorry?
We can hear you clearly. So
perfect. Thank you. So my name is Nadjev Ponoma, and I'm a 12-year resident of Woodcroft Complex, which is adjacent to the Lionsgate Village. I do not have any experience in development, but I would like just to voice a general public opinion, which I found quite common among my neighbors at the Woodcroft. So the rezoning itself was expected as a part of the village implementation, and the proposal looks very well thought of, and I would like to thank you everyone for great work with lots of innovation. Thank you. However, I and my neighbors have a big concern with the height of the proposed high-rise building, that is the 27-story tower. The approved village implementation plan that was arranged years ago set the proposed height of high-rises to 18 to 20 stories. And any increase in that height, it obstructs the views which this area is famous for. And that is what draws tourists and residents to these places. And I think this can't be neglected. Moreover, the increased height also leads to increased density. I know that the transportation plan that was created for this area is based on the density outlined in the implementation plan. That is those 20-story towers. Now what we have, all the approved applications, they exceed the number of stories, and we already have under construction the building that is 23 stories and 26-story tower. And my understanding that the Sentinel, the 26-story, that was not on the original village plan at all, that it's been approved by West Vancouver, and in my opinion, it came on top of the approved village implementation plan. So I doubt really the transportation plan was adjusted for that. This application, it also exceeds the scheduled height. And I would like you to visualize how much it exceeds. It's only 1/3. That is the 9-story building placed on top of the scheduled high rises. It's a huge difference. So I'm very concerned with the additional traffic that this increased density coming from this increased height will generate, even if proper commercial space is designed. There are ongoing traffic issues in this area now, and they only get worse with every year. Even with the proposed infrastructure, the closest school still will stay quite far away, and the grocery stores, like medical facilities, everything needs driving. There are additional factors that were not foreseen in the original transportation plan. For example, even a pedestrian trail to the Cleveland Dam is closed with unclear outcome. It also generates the traffic for people to go to the north. COVID pandemic with no foreseeable end. People try to minimize the use of public transport, from what I hear, and prefer a private car. This was also not an original plan, that is, was accounted in the transportation plan. Other developments that go through on the North Shore, they also come very often with increased density. And we still have the same two bridges that connect us with the mainland. So to finalize, I would like to propose on behalf of myself and my neighbors to consider decreasing the number of stories in this application for the tower to the originally designed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Nadjev Ponoma. I understand the next person on our list, Mary Hosseini, has withdrawn and has notified the clerk as such. The next speaker that I have is Hazen Colbert, joining us virtually. Mr. Colbert, can you hear me?
I am unmuted, Mr. Little. Can you hear me?
Clearly. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Only through Mr. Little do I speak, only through the mayor do I speak tonight. There is a technical issue, not a technical issue, there is a statute issue that we have to deal with. 3 members of this council, Councillor Bond, Councillor Hanson, and Councillor Curran, have blocked me from receiving any form of written input to this public hearing. So we have 3 councillors, and I want to stress, I have written confirmation that those 3 councillors cannot receive my written input. As a result, second reading is limited to 4 councillors, exclusive of Councillor Bond, Councillor Hanson, and Councillor Curran. Your Worship, if the District of North Vancouver wants to disagree with me, they are welcome to do so, but they must do so through their legal counsel, Mr. Gavin Cameron. You've now realized what has happened. Given the oppressive actions of the District of North Vancouver against me for speaking the truth over the last several years, I will now continue to speak the truth. Earlier today, I received notice of the Travelodge being dedicated to an alternative and repurposed form, which through the article in the North Shore News stated that that repurposed form would extend to the end of 2023. Actually, I reached out to parties I know. The First Nations agreement with the parties says, it clearly states, this is a legal agreement, Your Worship, that the repurposing of the Travelodge will extend to 2025. So my question is, why are we tonight hearing about a potential redevelopment, which can't take place any earlier than 2026. In addition, Marval Developments, open parentheses, Lionsgate, close parentheses, is not the owners or the owner of the properties involved in this application. I know who the owners are. Mr. Teevan and I have discussed this matter. Mr. Teevan has requested that I provide him with the names of the owners. I have decided not to, solely because I am concerned for my safety, the safety of my family, and the safety of my properties. The owners of this application, and I want to stress that in November the 23rd of 2020, I came forward to this council indicating a great concern about who is involved as the genuine applicant. You can look it up. I expressed great concern. I want to stress again tonight that great concern. And I stress that because of a text message that I received from our very good mayor, Mayor Little, today, in which, and I quote, "Mr. Geller is a hired gun." Mr. Little, that's what you wrote to me today, and I could not agree more. Mr. Geller is a hired gun. That is why I am concerned for my safety, the safety of my family, and the safety of everyone in the District of North Vancouver with regards to this application. And thank you, Council.
Thank you very much. I think that was a sentence segment. I believe I said Mr. Geller is a hired gun and a very good one at that. Maybe that is more fair. I think it is a little more complete a statement. Thank you, Mr. Colbert, for your comments. The next speaker I have is Corrie Kost, joining us virtually. Mr. Kost, Dr. Kost, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me, Your Worship?
Yes, I can. Welcome.
Oh,
you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Well, I'm neither for or against this project. I have some interest in the project because I have to travel by this periodically, and congestion, traffic is a concern for anyone who's going to go in this area, as travel studies have shown in the not too distant past. There is a definite problem at this Capilano and Marine Drive intersection, as past videos presented by hired staff, as it were, or hired consultants, have shown in their videos, and the traffic heavily backing onto the bridge as a result. So that is a problem that should be dealt with. To have the roadway of Capilano cut into pieces and chunks that are so short and very difficult to synchronize for the traffic flow up Capilano Road as it comes off the bridge is going to be a problem that council will have to deal with in the future. I found it interesting that next week's council meeting is going to deal with the OCP action plan implementation update. And so I looked at that, and their priority in that priority action 3 on page 3 of that report coming before council next Monday says that the priority action 3 is to prioritize rental, social, and supportive housing projects to increase the range of housing options. I would have thought in this proposal, we would have a far larger proportion of non-market housing. In fact, it's a little deceptive to say 41 out of 330 are non-market. What really counts is maybe to look at how much space is actually, or how many square feet are there in the total of those 41 units compared to how many square feet there are allocated to the other 330. That data will be difficult for you to get unless you ask staff to get that for you. So it's a different way of looking at the proportioning. Rather than number of units, look at the number of square feet allocated. There's a question also about the locals first being able to bid on these units. I think there might be some legal ramifications to this move in BC, and I'm not sure that it's supported by any BC or federal regulations on the sale of goods. Speaking about neighborhoods versus complete communities, as some people have spoken this evening, I remind that a neighborhood is generally a car-oriented creature, as it were, while a complete community at least has some capacity to provide goods locally within walking distance usually, and requires fewer cars. Sadly, this community that's developed, despite the fact that there was supposed to be 100,000 square feet of commercial space in this community, a very small fraction has been put in and will be put in by the looks of it, so that you will not have a true complete community. It's basically a housing area, which is sad. I understand the water table, and it's been nice to see that you can go down to third level parking is feasible in this area. I understand that the adjacent project right at the corner of Cap and Marine didn't fare so well with that water table and had some difficulties getting the province to sign off on that because the water table seemed to be problematic. So it's a little odd that it's not problematic here, but it was at the corner of Cap and Marine. The shadow studies are interesting and show that the shadows will be quite imposing onto this park space. If you look at the possible alternative configuration, I think you'll find that you could have swapped that with the other unit, which is not as high, with that parkland, and have more sunshine going in between the buildings rather than sitting in the shadow of the tallest building, which, by the way, is 27 stories, even despite the fact that the Lionsgate plan on page 6 of that plan allowed only up to 20 stories for this site. The HOV lane that's going to be going on Marine Drive, it's still uncertain whether carpooling on that lane will be allowed, but it's certainly critical, I think, for many of us who are willing to carpool. Again, about the park space, considering the number of people expected to actually populate these buildings, the amount of park actually provided is significantly less than the standards provided by the district. And I would have expected much more. park space to be provided for these 330 units that are going into this space. Anyway, that's some of my comments. I might come back for a second time. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Dr. Kost. Okay, that's completed the list that I have here. And so at this point, I'm just going to check, would anybody else like to address the hearing for a first time? Mr. Miller, welcome. And then what will happen is I'm going to exhaust first-time speakers, and then I'm going to go and see if there's any questions that have come from council to staff, and then I'm going to come back and start doing second and third-time speakers as it permits. So don't worry, the hearing's not over yet. We have plenty of opportunity to hear from you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. John Miller, 1600 block of Tatlow Avenue. I am here tonight to provide my own personal comments and not those of any organizations that I belong to. I am opposed to the project at 2050-2070 Marine Drive as it currently is proposed and at this time. The infrastructure is not in place to support the proposed project. In particular, the missing extension of Curling Road across Capilano Road to McGuire Avenue. You're all well aware of the traffic congestion issues with the intersection of Marine Drive and Capilano Road. The OCP calls for the extension of Curling Road across Capilano Road to McGuire Avenue, which would allow for any vehicles coming from the developments on the west side of Capilano Road who intend to head east on Marine Drive to avoid using the Marine Drive and Capilano Road intersection. They would use the McGuire Avenue and Marine Drive intersection to turn left and head east. As it exists today, they will have to turn right onto Capilano Road heading south and cut across 2 lanes of traffic to get to the left turn lane. This is not just an unsafe traffic maneuver, but it is also an illegal traffic lane change. The reverse trip for vehicles coming west on Marine Drive that require access to the village center have to use the bus lane on Marine Drive to turn north onto Capilano Road, thereby holding up the buses on Marine Drive. This problem exists today and will be exacerbated as occupancy of the existing developments takes place over the next coming months. Transportation studies are famous for averaging the number of vehicles coming from new developments over a rush hour period of 2 or 3 hours, thereby making any increases seem insignificant. That may be because they don't know the employment, starting times, destinations, etc. for the new residents. However, please take note of this situation before you. Not only are there going to be new residents traveling to downtown Vancouver, Richmond, the airport, etc., who will be using the Lionsgate Bridge via Marine and Capilano, but an important group to consider here is the elementary children going to school. The North Vancouver School District has set the catchment boundary wherein all the elementary students from the village area north of Marine Drive and west of Capilano Road must attend Norgate School. The school is located at 1295 Soudan Street, which is 8 blocks east and 3 blocks south of Marine Drive. It isn't practical to take the bus to the site, a questionable distance for school-age children to walk, and adding the driving parents attempting to get their kids to school to the already congested morning rush hour traffic is going to be a problem. Remember, school children and their drivers don't average out over a 2-hour period for the start of school in the morning. The 2 Park West towers and the Sentinel Tower in West Vancouver that access Curling Road appear to be near completion and only a month or 2 from being occupied. Along with the numerous townhouses now filling up on the north side of Curling Road, without the Curling Road extension across Capilano Road to McGuire Avenue, gridlock may become a real thing this fall. If you're thinking that the parents of elementary-aged children are going to walk them to school or expect the older ones to walk themselves, remember that they will be required to cross both Capilano Road and separately Marine Drive, risky maneuvers for adults, let alone elementary-age school children. One item that people may have forgotten is that when the village was originally presented to the public for comment and support in the OCP, there was an overhead pedestrian bridge included to get people safely over Capilano Road. District staff later eliminated the pedestrian bridge because they couldn't see a way to get more money and land out of the developers to build and pay for it. Pedestrian and cyclist safety has been compromised for the Lionsgate Village in favor of money. Next point is that this project does not meet the OCP when it comes to jobs. Previous councils and this council have done a very poor job when it comes to meeting the OCP requirement of 10,000 new jobs. This particular project, if approved as presently proposed, will result in a large loss of jobs from the existing 2 restaurants and motel. The last presentation to council at first reading, which added 574 square feet of commercial space for a cafe, makes a farce of the OCP requirement. I understand that housing is a hot issue with this council, but jobs are equally important, especially if you want to reduce or maintain the traffic levels going over the bridges. I object to the density proposed of 2.75 FSR. The staff report to council usurped council's authority by stating the, quote, proposed 0.25 FSR above that permitted in the OCP is therefore supportable. I was under the impression that the public elected council members to make important decisions such as when or when not to stick to the OCP requirements. The proposed tower does not match the slimmer designs of the Park West and Sentinel towers on either side of this property. We've always been told that the slimmer design allows for higher towers. This one's higher than all of them, and it's not as slim. The previous proposal had a 29-story tower with a 6-story building alongside. This revised proposal will reduce the height from 29 stories to 27 stories and increase the 6-story building to 9 stories.
Mr. Miller, just want to check in.
I've got just much stuff, that's all.
Okay, if you're wrapping up, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
How is this an improvement when it doesn't come close to the 20-story tower that was presented to the public for their support of the OCP? Please do the right thing and reject this proposed development. Council, you can and should do better than this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next time is first speaker, and it's Foad Feridian joining us virtually. Foad, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship, your council members and members of the public.
Welcome.
My name is Foad Feridian. I have no interest in this project, and my presentation is focused on housing affordability and housing diversity on the North Shore. I've lived on the North Shore for the last 27 years, and my family operates a financial planning business in the district of North Vancouver. We have about a dozen people working in our office. Our office is adjacent to the North Shore Mall, North Shore Auto Mall. And out of the dozen people who work in our office, most of them are young professionals traveling, some of them from Coquitlam and Burnaby, spending up to an hour each way coming to our office. And some of them live on the North Shore. And they have a hard time finding a rental space, let alone buy a place of their own. With this project, what I see the positive points which will help a lot of these young people in our office is that 36% of the units in this project, or 112 units, are dedicated as rental units. 16 of them are rent-to-own strata units. 48 of them are local first strata units with a 5% discount for anybody who lives in the district of North Vancouver or the city of North Vancouver. And I see those two last points very positive, especially for my own children, who my daughter is 33 years old, my son is 34 years old, and my daughter is looking for a place to rent. My son is looking for a place to buy. A young family with a 3-year-old son and a second child on the way. And the affordability crisis that we have on the North Shore has come to a head, actually. So when I look at the statistics that Mr. Zhang gave us earlier, with rental units ranging from $1,100 to $725, which are about 18 to 30% discount from the average rent for comparable units in the district of North Vancouver, that's great news to me, my children, and the young professionals that we have in our office working with us. I'd like to thank Mayor Little, the council members, and the public for their participation in this consultation, and wish you a good night.
Thank you very much for your comments, Foad Feridian. The next speaker that I have is, I believe, Belinda Lyons indicated you wish to speak. I'm just making sure that you're connected over to the meeting here. Can you hear me? Belinda Lyons, we should have sent a note back to you trying to add you as a panelist. And if you can click accept, then we'll be able to include you in the conversation. Okay, I believe Belinda Lyons has lowered her hand, so doesn't intend to speak at this point, but if you change your mind, feel free to raise your virtual hand again and we'll do what we can to get you connected to the meeting. So once again, just checking around, anybody wishing to address the hearing for a first time? Juan Palacio joining us here in person. Welcome, you have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Okay. Is this here visible? Can I?
We'll check.
Oh, it's not very clear there. Sorry about that. Okay, I'll just.
Not bad, but we need to spotlight it so that members at home, so that people at home can see it, if we can do that. Can we, is there any way to get it so that we can see the overhead camera? There we go.
Maybe it's just terrible quality because it's on an iPad and it's.
Well, can we zoom in anymore?
I can also just read out loud what it says there.
Well, if we can get it in the record, that would be great. But I think it is clear enough. Maybe if you can just manipulate it just a little bit off to the one side there, that'd be great.
Okay, I think that's
pretty clear.
Okay, so I just wanted to speak. I was going to mention the issues with concrete buildings, but that has already been spoken by somebody else earlier. I wanted to speak about the affordability and the definition of affordability with these apartments. So affordable has been defined several times as being 30% of a person's income. And when I was looking at the definition of low to moderate income families in the district, that was pretty broad, ranging from $3,001 to $85,000. So I wanted to point out that for these lower income families, the ones who are making $3,001, this would be almost 44% of their income, not 30%. For it to be affordable, it would need to be $750. For somebody at $35,000 a year, that's 37%. For somebody at $40,000, it's still 33%. And somebody needs an income of $44,000 a year for it to actually be low income. This is for studio apartments. And for one-bedroom apartments, which are a little more expensive, for a single individual to live there, which are $1,200, using the same incomes, it would be 47%, basically 48% of their annual income. Then going down at $35,000, it would be 41, and etc. And for it to actually be affordable, they would need a $48,000 income. So it is still ignoring low income families or low income individuals really to live there. This is not affordable enough. If we want to have affordable housing, we need to lower it more or adjust it based on individuals' incomes. So I do not believe that we can really just call it affordable housing. This is lower housing, but it is not fully affordable. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And can I add one more thing? I am one of these low income people, the young adults of the district are some of the lowest income people. So unless we're stuck living with our parents for our whole 20s, then we're going to have to leave the district of North Vancouver. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Would anybody else like to address the hearing for a first time? Okay, so I'm going to take just a bit of a pause. We've had some questions coming into staff. I think maybe now is appropriate time for a little bit of a leg stretch to give staff an opportunity to respond to some questions. We also have some questions here. Do we have yeah, those communicated to staff as well. So why don't we take just a 5-minute leg stretch, and then we'll come back with the first round of responses from staff to council's questions. So we'll just have a slight recess of about 5 minutes, and then we'll return with those. So returning at about 8:45. We're about to reconvene. We would request that members of council turn the cameras back on just so we can verify attendance for the next segment of the hearing. Great, that's what we have. And so Belinda accidentally put her hand up. Oh, that's what it was. That's, she sent me an email. Yeah. Good. Okay, we've received several questions from council to be forwarded to staff. And so we have Yan Zhang from District of North Vancouver staff who's going to be responding to those matters. Yan Zhang, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Since the beginning of the public hearing, staff have received 10 questions, and I'm going to read them out, if I may, and then I will direct that to the appropriate person, whether it's on the staff team or the applicant team, to answer those. Okay.
Thank you.
The first question is related to a retaining wall on a private property, which is not related to the subject's site discussed at hand tonight. And Mr. Dan Milburn, General Manager Planning, will take that question. Why
don't we do this one at a time? And so Mr. Milburn, rather than doing a recap later. So Mr. Milburn, you've got the first question.
Excellent. Thank you, Your Worship. In response to the question raised by a member of the public, I understand they're representing the Strata Corporation for 2030 Marine Drive. Just wanted to clarify for council the location of this disputed wall, and that is actually to the east and northeast of 2030 Marine Drive, so abutting Celtic properties to the east. It's not actually abutting the subject property for tonight. So it's a different property dispute. And to be clear, the district was made aware of this dispute and concern and passed along those concerns to Celtic to try to encourage the parties to reconcile any private dispute they might have. Just for council's knowledge, the district does not issue permits for construction on adjacent properties without the adjacent property owner's permission. So we only permit encroachments as part of larger developments if there's permission from the owner. So in this particular case, we made Celtic aware of this concern being raised by the strata owner of 2030 Marine, passed that information along, and we anticipate that those disputing parties will resolve the issue. We have no authority to step in and resolve that dispute between private property owners with respect to the alleged encroachment, but we're certainly encouraging the property owners in this case to resolve those issues. Again, this is a dispute with a property owner to the east, not the subject property. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you.
Thank you. The second question is, who are the owners of this property, the subject sites, and then the names of the directors, if possible. And to answer that is Staff Project Lead Kevin Zhang.
Sorry, just had to unmute myself. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Zhang, for the question. And to Your Worship, the owners is Marble Developments Lionsgate Village Limited, Inc. number BC 0984524. And I'd just like to clarify that ownership is recorded by the Land Title Office and our public records. Also, ownership may change, of course. So the focus tonight is building on land use density and associated amenities and infrastructure. With that said, the directors listed on the corporate search for Marble Developments is Rahim Fakari and Sarah Fakari. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The third question is about the Locals First program, and the question is whether this is secured in perpetuity, including a 10% discount. Your Worship, this is a good question for the applicant. With your permission, I would like to ask them to answer that.
Please, Mr. Geller.
The local first program would apply to initial purchasers of brand new units. The idea is that the project will be offered just to local buyers for the first 2 months. However, over time, as people buy units and take advantage of the 5% discount, when they're ready to sell, they can sell at the market value. So the program is not in perpetuity. It's being offered by the developer when the units are first sold, but it will not apply to resales over time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next question is about the step code. And doesn't the commercial, i.e. the coffee shop, needs to be step 3? And how large is the coffee shop? I just wanted to clarify, there is a small typo in the report. So I want to clarify that the coffee shop is going to be step 3. The applicant confirms that. I just want to put it straight for the record. And then the square footage of the coffee shop is 574 square feet. The next question, number 5, is will the 2030 Marine have access to the new public road to the north of their property? And to answer that is Mr. Zhang.
Thank you, Ms. Zhang. Can everyone see my shared screen?
Not yet, but if you...
Oh, sorry, I forgot to click the share button.
Yes, now I can.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, 2030 Marine Drive currently has 2 vehicle accesses. So 2030 Marine Drive is highlighted in purple on the screen, and it's just east of the development that we are looking at tonight. And they currently have 2 vehicle accesses, which are highlighted in orange by the orange arrows. Should the applicant proceed, should the application proceed, these 2 access points will remain, and 2030 Marine will continue to have access to dedicated public roads via these 2 locations.
Would it be possible, Mr. Zhang, to zoom in on that and just use your cursor to show the existing rear access and what it will be moving to? Like, sorry, the road that comes in. It's that little laneway that comes into the back of the Denny's there, but when you see it, it's sort of watermarked on the image.
Sorry, could you clarify?
From there to the northeast, just sort of drag your mouse up and show the old, look to the northeast, not the northwest, the old route.
Oh, the old route. Yeah, the old route would go into the adjacent property here, and then kind of come up through there. Yeah. Obviously, with the new road here, the properties, the cars would exit off here onto a dedicated road, turn right, onto this new dedicated road.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So I have the next 2 questions are also should be answered by Mr. Zhang, and I'm just gonna read them out. So if the parking stalls are unbundled, how many of them will be specifically designated for the rental components and for the non-market rental components? And then the next question is, will you need to be, for the non-market rental units, will you need to move out of those units if your salary goes up? So Kevin.
Thank you, Ms. Den. Through your worship. So the first question is about the parking dedicated to market rental. So there are 61 parking spaces dedicated to market rental and 27 spaces dedicated to non-market rental. There's also a section in the housing agreement that stipulates that parking rented to non-market rental units would have to be rented at the same discount as would the rent would be compared to the market rental units. And to answer the second question about increasing incomes and whether or not you need to move out. So in our experience on similar projects and working with nonprofit operators like BC Housing, someone being required to move out is actually a pretty rare occurrence because of the many measures that are put in place specifically to negotiate these situations. For example, the income range is typically a band rather than a solid number. So that provides some flexibility. The income is also adjusted upwards for inflation, similar how the rents are adjusted for inflation. Tenants are typically approved at a lower end of the income band, both to cater so that, you know, it's the families that need it the most that get the building, but also to account for income growth. But at the end of the day, you know, if someone's income does far exceed the intended income range, then we do need to balance kind of the principles of fairness and maintain the purpose of the social housing, which is to provide housing to families that do need that sort of rental subsidy. At which point, then at least a 6-month notice will be provided to the tenant. And depending on the ultimate operators of the non-rental housing, they may use other strategies, such as relocating them within the same building, relocating the tenants to another building or another unit within their housing stock. So this will be dependent on the registered society who will eventually operate the non-market housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next question, I am going to direct this to the applicant. And this question is about the approximate cost to the purchasers of the strata units, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom, and also what is the cost per square foot?
I think everybody in this room knows that prices go up and down, but what I can tell you is the average price for the Park West development immediately next door was approximately $1,350 a square foot. That's the price at which the units sold over the last couple of years. So if I had to guess what the price would be today for new units, I would suggest it would be a similar number, $1,350 a square foot. So that means that a larger 2-bedroom of around 1,000 square feet would be 1.35 million. However, I don't dare hazard a guess as to what the estimated cost might be 18 months from now when these units would likely come to market, having gone through the final zoning process, the development permit process, and approvals. As those of us know, over the last few years, we've seen prices go up and go down. But the marketplace is very much dictated by the sale of the homes up and down Lonsdale and immediately next door, both to the east and to the west.
Thank you. So the next question is about the heights. What are the heights of the adjacent towers at 27 stories? Is this the tallest tower in Lionsgate Village? And Mr. Kevin Zhang should answer this question.
Thank you, Mr. So through your worship, the quick answer is yes, this will be the tallest tower. And for the adjacent building, so the Sentinel is 26. Park West, which is the former Grouse Inn site, the towers are 23 and 19. Capilano Residences are 12. However, outside of district jurisdiction, International Plaza is 28 stories. So it is 1 story below International Plaza. Thank you.
So the last question we received in this batch of questions should be directed to the applicant, and that is about what is the proportion of the square footage allocated to market strata versus to rental and market and non-market rental housing?
I was just calculating that number, and I will need a few more minutes to do the measurement, but it will be less than the percentage of units, because generally speaking, the rental units tend to be a bit smaller on average than the market units. So the percentage will be less than the 35%, which was the ratio of rental units to overall number of units. But as soon as I have that calculation, I will share it with Kevin Zhang, the planner.
Thank you.
That's all the questions we've received so far, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Resuming the public input, we're now looking for first and second time speakers. And I have a new first time speaker that's indicated their interest online. It just says Bhatia. Bhatia, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the hearing.
I'm sorry, I just have a quick question. One of the speakers mentioned that there were donations involved. Can you elaborate more on the donations not being a conflict of interest? And also, can you specify the nature of these donations? Thank you.
Yeah, again, it's a hearing, so it's an opportunity for people to share their views on the matter. But I think I made the comment before that these were donations made during a municipal election, and they complied with the BC Municipal Election Act, and they were publicly disclosed at the time, and also proactively disclosed by the members of council that received them at first reading. That's the nature of it. If you have any more specific questions about the nature of it, I think the clerk can assist you with any questions about donations going forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address the hearing a first, second, or third time? I have Mr. Teevan, followed by Mr. Colbert, followed by Ms. Ebrahimi. Mr. Teevan, welcome for your second 5-minute speaking opportunity.
Thank you. Sorry, that took me a minute. I know it's not my obligation or right to respond to the member of the public that just asked, but I just want to say these are the slides, including the donation documentation from my previous input, and I'm going to put that in black tray, asking that it be scanned and entered into the public record.
Yes, and any other members, any other people who wish to add any notes from their speaking material or anything, there is a little tray in front of Peter there that you can put something there, or just by emailing it to the clerk, it'll be shared with the council and form part of the public record.
Thank you. And I'll also go on to submit the following. I'm about to get into the floor space ratio analysis that I conducted. There for the public record are the slides on that. I've got a presentation that, if I'm able to, I would like to give. I consider it very key information. I've entitled that "When is a Gift Not a Gift?" I have an analysis of the non-market rental units. I think there's a key mistake in the setup of the housing agreement for the non-market rental units. I've got that there. I've got a letter to you, council, asking about what percentage of new builds have been occupied by primary residences, and another letter that expresses my concerns about the right of access for 2030 Marine Drive. With that, I will get into my presentation on floor space ratio calculations. We've seen this map earlier before, and I draw your attention to the right side.
Sorry, Mr. Teevan, I'm going to pause for a sec. We can't quite see it on screen yet.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
just
sorry.
going to try and adjust that. That's on my screen here and there, but will the members of the public see it yet? Not popping up on Zoom yet. There we go. Carry on.
Okay, thank you. On the left is the map from the staff package. On the right, I've detailed using the GeoWeb mapping tool that there are 4 lots here that are included in this proposal. And you can see from this beautiful rendering, building A, B, and C that are among the other towers that are in the Lionsgate Village. Here what I've done is I've used the GeoWeb system to compute what the total area is of the lots in question, and then from the staff report, what the floor space that is proposed. Now, I think there's a slight rounding error here. I got 2.74 FSR, and of course I'll take the staff figure as official of 2.75. I must have some rounding error in my calculations. A couple of notes. First of all, this is over the OCP limit, which I view to be a covenant designated for the area, which is 2.5. We can see from the calculations here, the previous ones, that this is the total area. And so when we're talking about the FSR, I think it's key for, certainly you experts, planners and members of council will understand this, but members of the public will not understand this, that the amount of building being proposed is inclusive of FSR using the lands that are designated as somehow being a gift to the people of the district, being the roadways and the park. Okay, so what is happening in this proposal is that the space for it's labeled as a city park. I don't imagine that Mayor Buchanan will be ponying up the maintenance costs for this, but it's listed as a city park. 0.14 hectares, this is according to Mr. Zhang. 0.26 for the roadways. It's important to understand that by leaving those spaces empty and using the density at 2.75 FSR, these open spaces drive 118,000 square feet that gets lumped into the tower, okay? What I've done, and one of the things I've submitted as a question by email earlier today is, what are the average market values? Because we're pretty confident that they vary according to the height or the altitude. So the uppermost floors are the most valuable because they have the views. And I want to note, what we don't have here is a proposal of 3 equal buildings, all 13.3 stories. We have a 4-story building, a 9-story building, and then the highest building in the area. Certainly, it may even be the highest in all of the DNV. The planner, Mr. Zhang, was unsure whether Sealin was slightly above this, but I'll leave that for follow-up. So 118,000 square feet on the tower. This is what it looks like. 15 floors of tower are derived, because the average square foot per floor is 7,600 square feet according to our planner. 15 floors of tower can be attributed to these open spaces. I don't think we're getting much of a favor there. At $2,000 a square foot, assuming the highest ones are the most marketable, that's $236 million worth of real estate. That's an expensive park. I just want to bring up also our OCP. In our OCP, the land use designation, this is designated as mixed use commercial residential. One would expect that that would usually mean commercial on the main, maybe the mezzanine, and then residential above. But that's not what we have here. We're giving up 2 full-service restaurants, and we're getting a 500 square foot coffee shop. If this is to be a complete community, I always hear from council and planners, we need complete walkable communities. Where's a grocery store? Where's a bakery? Where's a hair salon? Where's a pub? Let alone a school or a doctor's office. What I would prefer to see...
So Mr. Teevan, I'm just going to interrupt you there for a sec. So you've now gone through a second 5-minute period. I'm willing to give you an additional 5-minute period, but I'm going to go through the other second time speakers first.
Beautiful.
That's okay.
I think this is my last slide in this section. Would you like me to finish this now or hold it till later?
If you can do it quickly.
Yes, I can do it quickly.
Please.
Here's what I prefer to see is lower this to 2.5 FSR, which would mean shaving off 3.5 stories from the tower. And I will touch on this in a few minutes when I'm allowed, is to keep title and maintenance cost and obligation and liability, therefore, for the roadways and the park with the developer. And I'll explain later why I consider those to be private parcels, not public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker I have is Hazen Colbert, followed by Tina Ebrahimi. Mr. Colbert, can you hear me?
Mr. Little, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome. You have 5 more minutes to address the hearing.
The first thing I want to say is I am extraordinarily impressed by your planner, Mr. Zhang, who earlier today at about 1 p.m. was presented with some very detailed information about the Travelodge. site, and he incorporated it into his presentation tonight, and he didn't miss a beat. Mr. Zhang is a brilliant planner. I've been around this, Your Worship and Council, I've been dealing with this type of stuff for 32 years. It is seldom that I have seen such a good staff person. And so I acknowledge his excellent work. And at the same time, I have to say that it's really unusual that his boss, Mr. Dan Milburn, who is attending this meeting, has kept quiet for the entire process. Your Worship, you and I have actually discussed a number of things related to this development proposal. I'm not going to say I disagree with you. In fact, I actually agree with a number of things that you and I have discussed. What concerns me is what happened to later this afternoon. I contacted the First Nations stakeholder who is mentioned in the agreement, the housing agreement. And they said, I think it's Luna, they said, oh, there is no chance there'll be any development take place before 2026. Your Worship, I'm going to refer back to an email that all of you received, all of you in this council, and pretty much all of the people that are listening right now. May the 14th. Here it is. This email, you've all got it. I don't need to debate whether you received it. It's from Mr. Geller, and it says, we very much want to proceed now. Having been before this council on 3 different occasions, it is essential that the road system and park on the Travelodge property be completed as soon as possible to serve the adjacent properties and entire Lionsgate Village community. Your Worship and Council and every stakeholder that listened to me, that's what Mr. Geller wrote to me on May the 14th, and it is completely in contrast to the housing agreement that the District of North Vancouver and the owners of Travelodge and First Nations have signed with the owners of Travelodge to prevent any form of completion of the road system before 2026. All I'm asking for this council, all I'm asking, please, who's telling the truth? Is the truth the email that I received from Mr. Geller on the 14th of May, or is the truth tonight by Mr. Geller? That's all I ask. Who's telling the truth? Your Worship, I trust you. By the way, you have no idea how much I trust you if you don't understand it. I trust you. I trust councillors, Betty Forbes and Councillor Lisa Murray. Let's have legitimate public disclosure of this project before council approves bylaws. Thank you, Mayor Miller. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor Little. Thank all the people that have listened to me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Colbert. The next speaker I have is Tina Ebrahimi, followed by Enhab and Judith Brook. Ebrahimi, welcome. You have 5 more minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you. Mayor Little, can I ask you one question before I begin? There's a lady I met tonight right behind me. She asked me if I could translate for her. Could you put her up as a speaker for item number 2 or 1? the lady sitting right behind me.
I can add another speaker if.
With your permission.
I think that's successful. I mean, our goal is to welcome people and have an opportunity for them to speak. And so if you want to work through translation services, I think that's acceptable.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to have her up after Judith Brook, which is 2 speakers after you.
Sure.
And so, but it's your turn now, Ms. Ebrahimi.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, so some of you heard me speak earlier. I want to talk about, excuse my wording because I don't want to, don't paraphrase me on this part, but I understand there's a development called Park Executive in West Vancouver. Now that's the closest nook to the District of North Vancouver development proposal that's discussed tonight, north of Park Royal. So I'm just concerned because the bottleneck that we all have been experiencing, I mean, I know myself firsthand, I had to take a loved one for a number of times to St. Paul's just to avoid the Lionsgate Hospital backup as an emergency. And unless we're going to grow wings or we're going to have an airplane to charter, I'm really concerned about the infrastructure situation there. And I know that's a little bit redundant. Perhaps people have touched on that before, but it's needless to say, if we have 2 bottlenecks, West Vancouver and North Vancouver, with the current circumstances in mind, I can only imagine what will happen next. Secondly, Mr. Kevin Zhang, the planner. First of all, thank you so much for your work on all this work on this proposal. My concern is that in terms of the Lionsgate Crescent, the image you had earlier with the purple building, that's our commercial building. The issue that I have with that is that a section of our property is being proposed to be obstructed. Actually, I meant to mention this earlier. A north part of our section of our property, our visitors' property, which basically is suggesting we alter our strata common property. So I'm wondering, how is the district looking into this, and how is the developer presenting a proposal for altering somebody else's strata common property without their permission? The other thing I had in mind, apologies, there's a lot of notes here. Okay, Mr. Geller, you mentioned earlier that prices are going up and down. I mean, I wish they would be going down. From my experience as being a commercial realtor, I've only seen the prices go up. So I'm not sure what you're referring to. I would love to live somewhere where the prices are maybe perhaps going down as well. Next, someone earlier spoke, and I'm very concerned about this, and I'd like to ask, is it possible that elected officials, a member of the public mentioned that elected officials have blocked him? How is that possible when their contact information is on a public website so that they can serve members of the community, taxpayers that are paying, you know, to get answers from the local politicians? So I'm going to leave that question with you. Last but not least, can we address the elephant in the room? We keep talking about the park. We keep talking about the public road. The park includes obstructing a section of our real estate. So, and Mr. Bruckner, who mentioned he had met with Woodcroft, to my knowledge, I've spoken to many people from Woodcroft. To my knowledge, unless somebody can correct this, they've never met Mr. Bruckner. In fact, we have never met Mr. Bruckner, and we are also an adjacent property affected by us. In fact, he's avoided all communication with us from the get-go, and one wonders why. In addition to that, if all driveways are being eliminated, as Mr. Kevin Zhang mentioned earlier, that includes driveway access to our commercial building with the hundreds of tenants inside who are recovering from a post-pandemic economic crisis. That's a real thing. Small businesses are suffering. And last but not least, the hidden costs, I'd really look into what are the actual rental costs. Is there hidden costs involved, including bike rentals or storage rentals? Because to my understanding, there is. Now, please, again, I'm ready for that to be rectified or clarified. Last but not least, everybody who's saying yes to this park proposal and the project moving forward because of the park, then let's do this. How about we play equal and fair? If every single one of you guys can send an email to the district saying that without your consent, they can be submitting proposals, all the developers in the District of North Vancouver, for your property so that you and your loved ones or your businesses cannot have access, then you know what? We'll meet you halfway. We'll match that. But I'm waiting for everybody that's saying yes to this city park to say no to their access to their driveways, no to their access to their businesses first. Is that fair? We'll play equal and fair. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everybody listening tonight. Thank you everybody for contributing tonight. Your voice makes a difference. Use it. It came with a lot of hesitation to be up here, but the more I thought about it, I couldn't shake the fact that my parents moved here 40 plus years ago when immigration had a different connotation, had a different definition. And back then, they worked hard with humble beginnings. And I will not let this happen to anybody else. I will not let it sit on deaf ears. I will be the voice for the District of North Vancouver, and I will be the voice for anybody whose rights are not being heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker I have had been noted as Enhab as a virtual participant. It looks like Enhab, sorry I don't have a full name, it's just the name that they were on the list with, just confirming. I believe Enhab has withdrawn from the meeting. We'll keep an eye on that if they come back. The next speaker that I have after that is Judith Brook. Judith Brook, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Mayor Little, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. Welcome. You have an additional 5 minutes for the hearing.
Great, thank you. Thanks to your staff for double checking and confirming there was a typo in the staff report related to the commercial building, that indeed it will be, the applicant has confirmed it will be built also to step code 3. However, just to reiterate, the part of what I was interested in on this portion is this, as we know, step code makes no comment about LCES, low carbon energy systems use or non-use. And I'm asking if LCES could be part of this commercial building. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The next speaker I have, I believe Ms. Ebrahimi, we're going to offer some translation services. If I could get that other person's name, love to have you come up as well, both of you up at there, and we'll so that the recording picks up both. That would be great. Thank you so much. We'll make sure it picks up both. Love to start with her name and then.
Hi, I'm Ferry Cherzad, and I'm living in neighborhood, Curling. We hear everything with everybody. I want to say I was proud of being a Canadian, and Canada is a beautiful country. And I thought always I was very hopeful and خیلی خوشحال بودم که توی کشور قانونمند زندگی میکنم.
I was very happy that I was living in a country that was rule bound or rule bound and law bound.
و همه چیز در آرامش، در امنیت و همه چیز با قانون داره پیش میره.
And that everything is at peace and everything is being governed through laws.
و همیشه خیلی تعجب از موقعی که این بیلدینگ‌ها شروع شد به ساخت، من همش تعجب می‌کردم که چرا حتی به رود هیچی اضافه نکردن، به جاده، و فقط دارن ساختمون می‌سازن.
And she was quite surprised, especially since these recent developments took place, how it is that additional infrastructures or roadways are not being made, and they're continuing to build with that in sight.
و تا الان هم به اندازه کافی بیشتر از اندازه ساختمون ساخته شده و رفت آمد رو برای همه در همه جهت مشکل کرده.
And that there's already been more than enough construction and development, and it's already created accessibility issues for going and coming.
بعد میخواستم بگم خواهش میکنم که این پروژه رو استاپش کنید. این کار صحیحی نیست و فکر نمیکنم که قانون بتونه اینو جواب بده و کار قانونی باشه و اینو استاپش بکنید و نذارین که آدم ناامید بشه از اینکه توی کشور قانونمند داره زندگی میکنه اما یک کارایی میشه که به نظر درست نمیاد.
I'm asking you, please kindly put a stop to this project. When I say I'm asking, I'm translating. And that you are the hope for this. Sorry, I'm just trying to paraphrase. You're the hope for this not occurring, because if you say yes to this, then you're taking away my hope. And I'm hoping that we govern things in a legal, govern it by the laws that are supposed to be there.
Yeah, that's it.
And by the way, for everybody's knowledge, it is my first time meeting this lovely lady. I was just sitting in front of her and I happened to be able to translate. Never met her.
Never met.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Ebrahimi. Appreciate that.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Anytime.
Okay. And would anybody else like to speak for a first or second time? Dr. Kost, I see you put your camera on and your hand up there. Go ahead.
Okay. I've been making some notes as I go along, so they will be a little scattered, Your Worship. But I think they might be interesting points to look at. Currently in Vancouver, okay, the average rent of a one-bedroom is $2,280 a month. Two bedrooms, $3,122. There has been a substantial increase in prices of rents in the last 12 months. And consequently, things are quite a bit higher than expected. I've been watching some of the presentations, and all I see from people that are not staff are very tiny presentations in the same sort of window size as I am to the rest of the audience, or Your Worship's size, you know. So it's not possible to tell what's being displayed. The description does help, however, but we need to fix that problem. The inequity between public display and display quality by staff. The access of 2030 showed two different access, one going north, one going south, directly onto the street of Marine Drive, the way I saw it. I thought we were eliminating all access points to Marine Drive. It'd be very difficult to have these bike lanes and special bus lanes and have a driveway come out from 2030 Marine Drive. I don't see that happening. The fact that I can't see what's really being submitted seems unfair to me. I can't see, like when we were present in real life in the council chambers, I see some deficiency in that process. We need to improve the ability, and there should be some sort of equity between people who have to be off-site. That's about the last comment I have, I hope, for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kost. I'll make a short comment on that. It is our goal to make the virtual experience as close as we reasonably can to an in-person experience. That is our goal. When members of the public are able to provide us with the presentation ahead of time, we download it onto we put it onto the computer at the desk. When it comes, presentation comes through the desk, as Mr. Teevan's did at the beginning, as Ms. Ebrahimi's did at the beginning, then they are provided the same full clarity as any staff presentation. When they go through the camera system, through the overhead camera system, you're right, it's a reproduction. It's reproduced a couple of times before it actually gets onto your monitor at home. That's just a limit. We are going through a rewiring project this summertime to try to improve the hybrid systems in the council chamber. I just ask everybody's patience. Obviously, the last time we did a tech upgrade, was when COVID was brand new, and we've had to make some adjustments since that time. So appreciate your patience. If people submit it, it will be in full clarity in the public record, and also if it is on the screen, not the camera, but on the screen of the desk, then it's we're all at least seeing it equitably clear, which doesn't mean that it's the same as you sitting in front of the screen necessarily, because again, it's all being reprocessed for us through Zoom. But I take your point. Our goal is to make it as close for people who are participating remotely as for people who are participating here in the council chamber. And some of our technology upgrades this summer will help to address that deficiency. Okay. Would anybody else like to speak in the hearing a first or second time? First or second time? Yes, come on up.
Thank you.
Start with your name, that would be great, and you have 5 minutes to address the hearing. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm Kathleen Foster.
I'm just going to get your microphone on. Is that okay? Go right ahead.
Kathleen Foster. Been a resident of North Vancouver for about 10 years, or the district of North Vancouver. Here today, slightly with a bit of cynicism. I'm not sure if this is just for a rant or whether it's actually intended to get points of view for intake on the decision making here. I am supportive of development. I think it's a great location to add additional infill housing in the face of a housing affordability crisis and a housing availability crisis as well. So I am supportive of that. I do have the experience of living further up Capilano Road and have some very significant concerns about the traffic flow and into downtown Vancouver. But as it happens, I am one of the few current residents of the Lionsgate Village right now. As a new owner in that community, I have some significant concerns about the availability of the infrastructure in and around the village, both access to downtown. I've seen the signs around the neighborhood for this new development. And I must admit, until I came here tonight, I was coming about the traffic. I actually thought that the Glen Eyre Drive would actually extend out to Marine Drive and provide a second exit for the residents of the community at large in there, because there's going to be a lot of residents. I'm sure you're more aware of that than I am in terms of the numbers. And granted, there's a little bit of obstruction at the moment because of the construction that's going on, but the residents are coming already and it's already very busy, and I can't even fathom how people are going to get in and out of that community on a daily basis. And to the very good points that others have raised here this evening, there are no services in there. And I'm an able-bodied middle-aged person, and I could probably walk my way over to Park Royal with the benefit of some time that I don't have with young children. But you have to get into a car in order to get groceries or any kind of other services whatsoever. And so if the intention's not I just don't know how people are going to get in and out of the community. And I really think it's very important from an infrastructure perspective, both that you either provide services so that people don't have to get in their cars and more commercial space in there, or have greater access to Marine Drive. And if the concern about Marine Drive access is the bus lanes or the bike lanes, again, supportive of all of these community initiatives, I would just say that those access points exist east-west along Marine Drive throughout North Vancouver. And so the idea that somehow at this juncture, you can't put an exit because of bus traffic just doesn't make any sense to me. You're trapping a whole bunch of people inside that community, including, to someone's very good point earlier, I can tell you, living in that community, there are young children, many, many young children and families moving in there because of the housing affordability crisis, I imagine, and they will have challenges getting to that elementary school. Like, there's going to be an infrastructure crisis created by your fix for the housing crisis. And so it seems to me that there should be some more thought into preempting problems in the future now, with more thoughtful choices. Okay, thank you
very much. Okay, would anybody like to speak a first or second time still? Okay, I'm just going to check in with staff again. Are there any council questions that you'd like to update us on at this point?
Yes, Your Worship. Earlier on, council asked.
I'm having difficulty hearing you. Maybe your boom mic.
I think it's
There you go.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Very clearly, yes.
Yes, Your Worship. Council asked a question earlier about the breakdown of the square footage between the strata and the rental, and that includes the market rental as well as the non-market rental. And the applicant has produced a response for that. And with your permission, I would like them to answer that question.
Okay, Mr. Gellan, please.
Your Worship, members of council, as I mentioned before, because the units tend to be smaller, I knew the percentage would be less than 35%. The actual percentage of the rental units is 27% of the total floor area of the development.
Thank you.
Okay, so and then staff, Your Worship, staff did receive 2 additional questions. The first one is to explain access issues to the business, and to answer that question is Mr. Zhang.
Thank you, Ms. Ann. Let me just share my screen here because I think that'll help with the explanation. Can everyone see that?
Yes, now I can.
So first of all, I want to apologize for the low-level graphic descriptions here because I'm doing this on the fly. So I figured having a satellite photo might also help to show the current condition, as the mayor previously had questions about the existing access. So I recreated the property boundaries to the best of my abilities in purple, as you can see here, of 2030 Marine Drive. And I've illustrated the current 2 accesses is off of onto Marine Drive and off of the northwest corner of the property. Currently, in order to access a public road, which I'm going to use this blue line, which is Curling Road, the occupants of 2030 Marine Drive have to drive over a private easement in order to have access to Curling Road here. In the proposed condition, the extension of Glen Air will cut through the property, and the new public road will be all of this highlighted in purple. The access locations for 2030 Marine Drive will remain the same. So they'll still have access off of the northwest corner of the property and still have access off of Marine Drive. It's just that now, in order to have access to a public road, they no longer have to drive through a private easement, but they will have access directly off of their exit here. And the access on Marine Drive remains unchanged. I hope that clears that question. I'll refer this back to you, Ms. Zhang.
We just have one additional question, and that is just to clarify whether the commercial component is built to step 3 of the BC Energy Step Code with a...
Sorry, Ms. Zhang, just before we move on, I just want to clarify something. So, Mr. Zhang, can you bring up the MS Paint? Love that. Great job with the MS Paint on that, if you could bring that back up.
Okay, 1 second.
Just to be clear, because unfortunately I can't move your mouse. So
is it working? Can you see it?
The right portion of the blue line. So on the other there, correct it from there up to the northeast, up to the northeast, up to the upper right. Yeah, there. That, to be clear, that's actually slightly further east of that point, and that is over. That is a strata, bare lot strata lane, correct? That is not a public road. That goes across the other developer's property, whereas the portion out to the west and north is actually a full public road. Is that correct?
That's correct. So
distinction that the leg of that road that Mr. Zhang has drawn there is actually an internal service road that is on the neighboring developer's property. And it's the left side that is actually the public road, the green parking. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So access will be maintained to the property. I think that's actually not public property either, just to be clear.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
the green, the first green.
Ignore that. That was an error. Go away. Green. Here we go. So yes, the purple denotes public road, and the green denotes private road, but there is a public access easement.
Okay.
Mayor Little.
But, just to be clear, the original access for Denny's and Foad will be closed, so there will no longer be accesses on Marine Drive for the subject property.
Yes, Councillor Mary. Yes, you have a question about the.
I would just like when this item is returned to council, I would like a little bit more sophisticated. No offense, Kevin, you're on the fly.
No offense taken.
Is very good, but I think we need to have something a little bit more clearly laid out in regards to what is happening with the internal circulation of this area out onto Capilano Road. Okay. So we need that to come back to council so we understand this very clearly to see how these developments are going to be internally moving and how they are going to ingress and egress out of this entire site of Lionsgate.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I'd like that map to indicate the difference between public road and easements, just for clarity's sake, but absolutely agree that that can return back when we come back at second and third reading. Okay, sorry, Yan Zhang, I interrupted you on your next question.
Yes, Your Worship. The last question we got is just a clarification that the commercial component, the coffee shop, is built to step 3 of the BC Building Code, BC Step Code, with a low carbon energy system. And I confirm that is the case. So it's step 3 plus LCES. And then the follow-up question to this is that whether there is any gas connection to the development, and that should be answered by the applicant.
Gallo, do you have a response to that at this time?
As I've mentioned before, all of the heating, cooling, domestic hot water, and cooktops, the residential units will all now be non-fossil fuel. However, before committing as to whether there's any connection or not, I would want to review that with our mechanical engineer in case there's a need for a gas connection for a backup generator or something like that. But if it is, I can confirm it would not be sized to serve all the units within the development, which is what was initially which is what was approved for the adjacent development and what was initially contemplated for this development.
Very much. Okay. Any other? That was the last question, Ms. Zhang?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay. All right. Checking back in now for first, second, or third time speakers. I have Ms. Ebrahimi and Mr. Teevan. Ms. Ebrahimi, welcome.
Hello again, everybody. Okay, so first I want to address the HOV laneway that Mr. Zhang addressed earlier. With all due respect, there's a lot of misinformation taking place here. That HOV concept would only make sense if our building, again, the black and white little tiny building next to Denny's, for those of you who don't know where it is, that would only make sense if that building was already redeveloping. There needs to be a setback. I mean, if you really look into the fine print here, we are requesting on behalf of our strata, on behalf of our family business, because we need to protect the best interests of the owners and the many, many occupants in the building. We are requesting a meeting with the District of North Vancouver to be able to review all of this with our professionals who also highlight the many issues surrounding this, not only is there now a discrepancy with the density, because that's not clear, as I just heard earlier, there's a different density, but also the clarification on the HOV, we'd like to also review the circulation issues. The map that Kevin Zhang had up earlier, I would like to identify that there is an L-shaped easement, and for the interest of time, I don't want it to come on the screen because I don't have a lot of time right now. The bottom of the easement is a 1973 easement, registered in 1973. The top is 1955, the one that goes to Curling. So from the north of our property all the way to Curling. Now there's also a secondary portion to the 1973 easement on the Marine Drive access area, which nobody seems to be addressing. So again, extension to your real estate, how are these decisions being made without our verifications? I'm still asking that question. Last but not least, I might be speaking again after this, sorry guys. I know you guys love me or hate me at this point, but Mr. Dan Milburn, he addressed something earlier, which it was our first time hearing from him. It's been 7 months. Actually, his last words to us were that he would endeavor to get back to us shortly. So I'm starting to articulate that the word shortly has different connotations, perhaps. But in any event, it was the first time we've heard that they're encouraging Celtic to reconcile with us. And although he said there's a civil issue going on amongst us, we still rely on our local governing body to enforce the bylaws that you guys have created. The District of North Vancouver has bylaws. In other words, we're still waiting for that to happen because bylaw enforcement has a role to play. I mean, would you not agree? If we don't have bylaw enforcement, then it's just the wild, wild west over here. And the truth is like the sun, you know, you can shut it out for some time, but it ain't going away. I mean, Elvis said it best, right? Okay, thanks guys.
I just want to be clear, Ms. Ebrahimi. This is the last opportunity to speak.
Oh,
there's no additional time, so you still have 2.5 minutes if you'd like to speak.
Oh, really? Okay, then I'll continue. Thank you so much for letting me know. You know what? The 2 minutes, do you want to speak about the? Can I allocate my last 2 minutes to my father, who's sitting?
Father can speak on his own time as well, so you don't have to.
I'll keep going then. Yep. Okay. So for those of you who are here, again, last but not least, this proposal cannot continue to be presented, in my opinion, because we represent the strata, because it represents altering strata common property. It represents blocking off our easement, which the District of North Vancouver has not addressed how they're going to be blocking off our easement for a city park, which I think we should all get into a room and have a collaborative conversation so that it's really a unified vision to support the community, official community plan, as they say. So we're still waiting for that. I know your Mayor, Mayor Little, I have addressed that a number of times with you. My schedule can be wide and available for yourself, and I will honor any time you allocate for us to be able to address that with the developers to our left and the right. After all, we're part of a sandwich, but this sandwich is not looking very good. In fact, our track record in the past year alone includes a long list. I've only summarized a few items, including the illegal wall built by Celtic on our property, which because the district didn't take action on enforcing their bylaws, we were left as a family business to have no choice but to pursue a lawsuit against them, which the strata owners that will be occupying those units would have to actually deal with in the future as well. Surprise, you purchased a unit, now you need to take care of a lawsuit that potentially the developer, if they don't disclose it to them, they will have to deal with it in their strata. So having said that, the reason I'm bringing that up, and you're probably asking at home, why is Celtic relevant? Well, Celtic is part of this official community plan, and so is this proposal. So if it's already happened once, and now they're proposing to do it again, then there is an elephant in the room and we need to wake up to it. And folks, mayors, members of the public, mayor, council, I am waiting. I am giving you my hope. I'm instilling my hope in you so that the dream of being somebody born and raised, and like I said at the beginning of my conversation, with every obligation comes a privilege associated with it. I have the privilege of being born and raised in North Vancouver. I'm giving you my obligation, which is to speak to the public about what we need to do, which is the right thing. I'm leaving that in your hands. Thank you.
Can I just clarify one thing you said? Sorry.
Yeah.
You're the owner of 2030.
I am not the owner, just to be clear.
Your family?
The numbered company that is behind our company. Yes.
Which is your family?
Which is my family business behind our strata.
Right. So 2030 is wholly owned by your family.
Is that relevant to this discussion?
Well, you just said that you're reporting back to the other owners. I just want to be clear that that's your father sitting here. Is that correct?
I said occupants in the building. We are responsible for 100 plus.
Sorry, I thought I heard owners.
Yeah, and the owners, there is 2 owners sitting here. My beautiful mother and my father behind me.
And they're welcome to address the hearing as well if you would like to.
Yes.
Absolutely welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Ebrahimi, did you want to speak? We're at last time speakers. After this, I'm going to be closing the hearing. So I would recommend now if you want to make a comment.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for providing me the opportunity. As I mentioned it with you before, the best thing is just all the neighbors get together and resolve this situation. This is not going to go away. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. You are mayor, your own municipality. We don't want you to get involved with all of this. We'd rather to contribute and resolve this situation. We always suggested, let's get together and resolve this. We try to protect our strata corporation, our tenants, and the property and all that, basically, and we don't let it be trampled upon. It is not going to happen. And we're here and we do all of our efforts. I've come here with nothing, and I've done hard work since last 43 years. And I do not let other neighbors take away my property rights. All I'm asking you, do the right thing. Do the right thing. We're not letting go. We're not letting go at any cost, basically.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next speaker, I believe, Mr. Teevan, you had indicated an interest to speak a third time. Welcome. You have 5 more minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you. Every time I get up out of those chairs, it seems to go slower. Thank you, Worship. I want to address what are normally called CACs, Community Amenity Contributions.
Can I hold you just there for a second, Mr. Teevan?
Please, yes.
Let's make sure, could we see the screen that Mr. Teevan, he's on the presentation. I believe that's, you're on.
Yeah, yes, on the presentation. And actually, this is not part of my submission, but just to comment to what you were discussing before about remote viewing. If you could please stop the clock, this isn't my submission.
Yeah. We're just.
If you look at the recordings that are generated through the public hearing or the public meeting process, what you'll find is when someone puts something here on the screen, it's only in a small window. Rather than the speaker view where you see it almost full screen.
What we've learned, and we are doing differently tonight, is that we use an option within Zoom to spotlight the council so that members of the public can always see the council's responses to things. When someone goes to use that computer, we have to unspotlight everyone so that takes up a larger portion of the screen. So tonight, to the best of our ability, we'll make it as large as we can.
Yeah, okay. Is it possible to restart my time?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the staff report in this proposal details community amenities. And among those are land dedications for what is labeled on the drawings as a city park, as described herein as a public park, and dedication of roadways. And using several of the drawings, I've got them here. One is just the lot parcels, and it details where this park parcel is to be. And then the other is a more architectural drawing. I had to spin it from the package. And here's my point. You know, looking at this beautiful rendering, Council, you're proposing to accept a park on behalf of the people of the District of North Vancouver. And I'm having trouble spotting the park. You know, I had to draw a little arrow to it. It's kind of tucked in behind the 27 stories, and it's kind of lying in the shadow of the Celtic development to the west, and in the afternoon it'll be behind the shadow of the one in West Vancouver. So I spun around and got a different photo, and here's the park. Mostly that shaded area that you can see there. And then the little bit to the right. So it certainly would be interesting to see afternoon shadow studies as well, because it strikes me that most of this park will probably be in shadow most of the time. The other thing I wanted to bring up is these roads, okay? What we have here, and let's go back and just revisit the comment we had earlier, that while we're supposed to have under the OCP mixed use with commercial, quite abundant, or prolific within the zoning here, all we have in commercial here is a 500 square foot coffee shop. Let's face it, we're not going to have people coming, members of the public, the rest of the citizens of the district of North Vancouver are not going to be coming to this site to go to a 500 square foot coffee shop. And so therein is my assertion that this park, in shade most of the time, and these roads really only service the private property owners and tenants on this site. And therefore, I don't believe that they have any public value. I think that they serve only this site. And keeping in mind that by using the FSR from these lands and lumping on them the tower, we're driving 118,000 square feet of tower. But when you use the value of something, you take all of the density away from it, and then you somehow claim that you've given a community amenity. To me, it kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of like double dipping. And so some of the questions I have, and I sincerely believe these should be answered by staff before you proceed much further. I don't know what the protocols are of when staff can answer, but what about long-term replacement of these assets? What about liability? Who pays for the lighting, the landscaping, the maintenance of these properties? Who pays for snow removal? What is the priority of snow removal? You know, because I put this analogy to my own home. When I built my own home, I'm allowed so much site coverage. And I chose to put a driveway in the front yard, and I chose to put a garden in the backyard. But I don't get to claim a tax credit and say that I've given something to the people of the District of North Vancouver, nor do I say, District of North Vancouver, now come over and clear out your driveway, please. And can you send somebody to cut the lawn? You know, I don't get it, where the public benefit is to this. So I believe that before you move forward, both council and the public should be fully informed about what either the present value or the annual projected cost to maintain these amenities will be. And then there's another issue that occurred to me. And I know that certain members of council and staff are really, really interested in stormwater management. And interested in limits on hardscaping. And it strikes me that if you're a private property owner that wants to hardscape most of your property, and you don't want to deal with things like bioswales or calculating how to handle the stormwater, here's what you do. You take the hardscape land, you donate them to the district. Now the runoff is yours, not mine. And I'm not accountable for it. I've just downloaded a problem that a lot of the members of this council are concerned about, that being stormwater. I've offloaded it back onto the taxpayer. And you get to declare that that is runoff that belongs to the district. So this is the last slide here. When is a gift not a gift? It's not a gift if it's not a public benefit. It's not a gift if it has all the value extracted and lumped on the tower. It's not a gift when it forms a liability and not an asset. And it's not a gift if you happen to use it to work around other regulations. My advice, decline the gift. Let them build and maintain their own driveways, let them cut their own lawn, let them shovel their own snow. Otherwise, go out to the Woodcroft and Lionsgate community associations and ask if they have any designs on using this public park. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, would anybody like to address the hearing for a first, second, or third time? Okay, checking back in with staff. Oh, Dr. Kost, you'd like to address the hearing a third time?
Very briefly, Your Worship, because I've just been doing a little bit of research here as we go along. You might want to know that in Vancouver, the average two-bedroom, not new necessarily, could be, but the average two-bedroom is $3,122, and the one-bedroom is $2,280. For the region as a whole, the Lower Mainland, the 2-bedroom, brand new, is $2,552. And the average in the city of North Vancouver, not necessarily new, for a 1-bedroom is $2,200, which is 11% more than it was last year. And for a 2-bedroom, it's $3,100. Now, I was just looking at the price for a 3-bedroom, which is now $4,700. $4,700 for a 3-bedroom of any kind in the city of North Vancouver. So I think what this indicates is that we need staff perhaps to do a realistic assessment, much more comprehensive one, of what the real rents are going to be and who do you expect to live in those? Not certainly the existing community. It would have to be a wealthy set of people that are coming in from somewhere else. So that's my final comments for this evening. Thanks you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Dr. Kost. Okay, I'm going to check back in with staff. Have there been any additional questions from council that you have responses for?
Yes, Your Worship. We have been asked to clarify the access issue. So what we will do is we will provide a better version of the drawing that was just put up on the screen at a second and third reading. And, you know, just to be clear that there is no new information, just more clarity on the drawing.
Understood. Any additional questions?
No, no additional questions.
Okay. And so I'm now back into sort of
Mayor Little. I just want to confirm with what Ms. Yan just said, that we're going to be confirming the access issues in and out of the site, but it's also the access to the existing businesses that are not part of this project in regards to Ms. Ebrahimi's comments. That is what the question was about as well.
I believe it inherent in that is going to be the access, the continued access to 2030 Marine as well. Yeah. That's what the connection road is for in that space. So.
And in correlation to the park. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I have to go back into a bit of a script and to formally close the public hearing. And so I'm going to exhaust the speakers list. And so I'm going to ask for our first time, would anybody else like to address the hearing for a first, second, or third time? I'm going to ask again, would anybody else like to address the hearing for a first? Oh, I see Foad Feridian would like to address the hearing for, I believe, a second time. Welcome. You have 5 more minutes to address the hearing.
Thank you, Your Worship. Listening to most of the speakers tonight, I see a lot of them have got a concern regarding the traffic situation, which probably most of the big cities are grappling with. Canada is expected to welcome 1.2 million immigrants over the next 3 years. And we know on the North Shore, we're going to get our fair share. The Metro Vancouver Regional District estimates that between now and 2050, we're going to add another 1 million to our population. So the population growth will happen. People will come. They need a place to stay. Whether they're from here, like my children, who are born and raised here, and they can't afford in their 30s to buy their own places, by limiting the developments in the North Shore, specifically the district of North Vancouver, the prices will increase. They're not going to decrease. It's a matter of supply and demand. What humbly I suggest to your worship and the honored members of the council is to find a solution for the traffic and to work with other government levels to find a solution for it. So, you know, the traffic is just going to get worse if we don't find a solution for it. People are coming and the population is going to grow, and we need a place to stay. We need a place to live. Thank you again for my second opportunity to speak tonight, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm going to say for a first time, would anybody like to address the hearing for a first, second, or third time? For a second time, would anybody like to address for us? Yes? Welcome. Yes?
As my husband and also my daughter mentioned, they have mentioned about 2030 Marine Drive building. I just wanted to ask you, all of you, one question. After working so hard and coming as a new immigrant to this country, to Canada, and living for 43 years, working so hard, how do you feel when you come to your house or to your property and you see your neighbor has come all of a sudden and put up a big wall, inches and inches, square footage, and still, I mean, you think, okay, at least the state of North Vancouver is going to support me, or this is not legal, and so on. And how do you feel that when you see something like that in your house, on your property? How do you react like that toward this action that Caltech has done it? So this is not, for us, this is not even acceptable. It's not acceptable that they come to our house or to our property, they put up a big wall, and still we have, it's a long time, we have had lots of discussion with City Hall, with not City Hall, the District of North Vancouver and Caltech and so on. This is one question. The other thing, as Mr. Foad mentioned, this is another thing that always I have been thinking about it. With all of these buildings, what's going to happen to the traffic? It's going to be jammed in Capilano Road, and I cannot even imagine people that they have small children, they have to give them a ride to school and all of these things, and it's going to be really, really disaster. It's going to be really, really tough. I have come from another country. I have seen the traffic, and I have seen all of these those things, and it's going to be really, really big hassle for everybody. So I don't know what's going to happen, but building that many construction and so on, and yet we don't have any road, that is a big issue. That's all I wanted to tell. And I would appreciate that you guys think about it and consider about our problem that we have with Caltech and with the building that we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to say for first time, would anybody else like to address the hearing for a first, second, or third time? For a second time, would anybody else like to address the hearing for a first, second, or third time? And for a third and final time, would anybody like to address the hearing for a first, second, or third time? Okay, thank you very much. I would suggest, Mr. Clerk, that we have exhausted the speakers list. Do you agree? Okay, I'm looking to council for a resolution. Councillor Back, I see your hand up. Do you have a resolution?
Yes, Your Worship. I would move that this public hearing be closed and that the matter be moved to an upcoming meeting of council, regular meeting of council.
Thank you very much. I saw Councillor Hanson seconding that matter. Okay. And so at this point, council, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Okay, so at this point, just for clarity, that means that this public hearing is now closed. That means the council cannot receive any new submissions about this particular proposal. Obviously, as outlined by Yan Zhang, there was a question about a map that was going to be addressed. That isn't new information, but it will be presented before the second and third reading for clarity. But other than that, this matter is now closed and council can't receive any further input on the matter. So I'm just checking with the clerk. Do you have a proposed date for when this will return to second and third reading?
Yes, Your Worship. We are tentatively targeting June 27th regular meeting for first, second, and third reading, I should say.
Okay, so that's June 23rd, you say?
June 27th.
June 27th. June 27th. Thank you very much. Just want to be clear about that. And so what that means, that's a tentative booking of June 27th. So what that means is if you're interested in this matter, you have to monitor the agenda in the week before that. Just to be clear that that is a target date. It'll be confirmed in the week of to make sure that that is the date that we'll actually be considering the matter. It won't be any sooner than that date. But assuming all of the technical requirements and and they're able to produce the map on time, then that's the intended date of June 27th. Mr. Teevan, you just have a question? That's correct. They are considered received. Materials that come into the black tray, materials that actually came in by email up until the point that we closed the matter are all considered part of the public record. And the clerk has them. Juan?
I wasn't able to.
This is what you said in the meeting?
Yeah, like the.
If it's the contents of what you said in the meeting, that's not new information, but send it to the clerk and the clerk will make sure that that's dealt with appropriately. Don't send it to the council, send it to the clerk.
Very little.
Is that correct? Hold on a second, Councillor. Is that the best way?
We have to be careful here, Your Worship, because what he has written and what he said may be different.
That's why I'm saying send it to you for verification.
Yes, send it to signup@dnv.org.
Sign up at dnv.org.
Published in the notice.
Okay, it was in the notice. Great. Yes, Councillor Murray.
I just wanted to confirm too that the questions that were submitted by the speakers will be answered by staff.
So they are not going to form, no, not before second and third reading, no. Unless they were asked by council in the meeting, then they're not automatically answered by the time of second and third reading.
Well, they were brought up into the public, they were brought into the public record, so.
That's correct.
So we're not gonna, we're not gonna do any work in regards to answering any of them?
If those
There's a number of
not,
questions that, we have done that before. We have done that before.
Councillor, if those questions were not forwarded to staff in the hearing for a response in the hearing, then no, they will not be, have a response by the time we get to second and third reading. It's up to council to determine whether the question is necessary for them to make their decision or not. And it's up to council to have asked those questions. That's been the policy we've had since the beginning of this term, or that's how we've conducted ourselves since the beginning of the term. And so just to be clear, questions that were asked during the hearing by council to staff, those answers are either already out in the field, or as in the case of the map, those will be responded to by second and third reading. But no, members of the public do not have the ability to force the extension of a hearing. It's up to the council to decide what questions are necessary for them to make their decision.
I think we need to, going forward, we might need to look at that again, because I do think that there's some, we can talk about that another night, but I think there is a lot of merit with the residents asking. What you're
commenting on, Mary. The problem is it creates a filibuster. It creates an opportunity for people to continually be asking questions that the hearing has to be maintained open for. And so that's why the questions have to be asked in the hearing, and it's up to members of council to decide which questions are necessary for them to be able to make their decision, which is what.
But on that, we do limit time, so I don't know why filibustering would be an issue.
Ms. Ebrahimi?
Question. Incorporated in my conversation. Are they recapped and at least relayed in?
Your Worship, we can't hear the speaker.
Yeah, I think we're done. This should be.
I can very quickly clarify, that's fine, I can very quickly clarify the question. And so when the staff produce the minutes of the meeting, yes, they do their best to reflect the nature of the questions that are asked and the comments that are made during the meeting. But is it a verbatim recollection? No, but the video is there, and the video always forms part of it. So at this point, I'm going to close. The meeting has already been closed by the council. I'm going to thank everybody for their participation. Councillor Forbes, I hope you're moving adjournment. You're muted. Yes, okay. Thank you very much. I accept adjournment. Everybody have a fantastic evening and go enjoy the fine